Hey everybody, this is Rydo and we're back to another live stream of Shadowverse. Let's hop in here. Yesterday was pathetically uneventful. I tried to schedule things, scheduled about 4 videos, and then just was not feeling it and spent the rest of the day basically accomplishing nothing. I've over planned as far as side projects and on YouTube related stuff and was distracting myself with that. I should have just played some Lego Pirates of the Caribbean and at least made new footage. I did recognize that I'm not as far behind as I thought I was, which is kind of nice, but I'm gonna risk it here and re-roll this one. But yeah, I am still kind of, I'm scheduled up to somewhere around December, so I have a couple of months to try and catch up, but if I'm not consistently scheduling, I'll never gain any ground. Now, one thing I did decide to do is I'm going to stop publishing the weekend videos. They're still going to come out on Saturday and Sunday, the reruns of Shadowverse at noon, United States Central Time. But I'm not going to push them. There's a checkbox you can click to notifications. So for the few people that are subscribed to me, that have clicked the bell, those great supporters that I've earned or gained, or luckily won. I think won is probably the better way to phrase that instead of earned. I think if you subscribe and click the bell, you still probably won't get notifications on that, but maybe you will. I'm not sure how that really works, but in the bigger scale of the almighty YouTube algorithm and its stupidity, I think it will help my channel. Nobody, well, of the 0.1% of people who actually watch my videos in general, I think it is approaching 0% of those people watch the weekend reruns of Shadowverse. So eliminating that means that hopefully the algorithm will say your best performing video would be either a pre-recorded, the last video you published would either be considered the Friday live stream or whatever aired at the last point on Friday as a pre-recorded footage. And I'm not sure if it's where it starts or where it ends. I suspect it probably is where it starts, so there's a high chance it wouldn't even be the Friday live streams that would be considered the last video. And the algorithm looks at the performance of your last video, and it says maybe a couple of your last videos, but pretty much you have to just assume it's your last video, and uses that to determine whether to suggest or recommend your channel or your videos to other people. So every weekend, theoretically, assuming this is really how the algorithm works, which nobody really knows. I guess I'm playing Dragoncraft today, which I suppose that's fine. Is there really reason to play ranked? Not really, but we'll try a little bit of that. Well, we should probably switch away from ranked fairly quickly, though. So theoretically, if the algorithm works the way they claim it does, YouTube claims it does, every weekend I've had something that maybe got 1 or 2 videos, then ruined by 2 videos that would get 0 videos very consistently. So this should help with some of what it really will only help a very little bit, but it will help a little bit with what the EU was talking about in the last live stream, EU being one of my fans, where my channel is just overwhelming. It puts out a lot of a lot of content, and I don't really know a great way to adjust for that. Yeah. This is crazy. To play that now. Let's play that, I suppose. Do this, and then I guess you just get rid of this one. But yeah, there's not a great way to adjust this, and you see it even with big YouTube channels where they try to make spin-off 2-3 channels. You have a clips channel for people that just want to see clips. You have a spin-off channel that does something different. Logically, even for my small YouTube channel, it would make a lot of sense for me to split it into 3 different channels. With the one exception that since I have one channel that doesn't even have 1,000 subscribers and isn't monetized, it's just not worth the effort to try and manage that and split it. Like, sure, if I had 100,000 subscribers, 1 million subscribers, then it would make sense to pay 3 different people to manage 3 different channels and take real control of that. I don't even know if you really need to pay 3 different people to manage the 3 different channels. You probably could just pay 1 person to manage all the channels, but depending on it. The clips concept in YouTube is theoretically evolving. They're experimenting with something new there. Anyway, so the idea of a clips channel may stop being something that really matters so much. And the difference now, as how clips are made, is that if you're running a clips channel, you are having to maintain and make those clips with your own resources, and it's not like a community involvement idea where somebody else could take a clip from your video and you could say, oh, that's a good clip, let's put that in our clips curation or collection and pass that out and highlight to other people. Whereas the evolution of clips on YouTube does kind of seem like it is trying to enter into a more open concept where people can just make clips, and I assume then they would be making clips and putting it on their channel. And when you make a clip, I think it still links back to the main video, and I still don't think you can monetize on a clip. I don't think you'll ever be able to take a clip from another content creators and make money off of that. That's not likely to happen, in my opinion. So the clips channels may disappear, but the spin-off channels still would totally make sense. Like, if everything that aired at my, when do I air it? Like 10 a.m. time slot. If my pre-recorded footage at 10 a.m. aired on one channel, and if my pre-recorded footage that aired at like 11 a.m. I don't know if it's really when that airs. I've changed the schedules and haven't done any scheduling in a long time to even remember. If that was on a different channel, and then this was just the live stream channel, then there would be 3 audiences being served very specifically. The weirdness there is that's just not how TV works. And it doesn't leave a lot of room for cross-promotion outside of the content. You may not notice that there's a nefarious amount of cross-promotion in something like Good Mythical Morning, for instance, specifically because they have those different channels, whereas the comparison to, say, ABC's primetime lineup is whatever airs at 7 o'clock on a Monday on ABC doesn't have to actually in its programming promote what's airing at 7:30 or 8 or 9 that same night, because there's just a general assumption that you're going to have a decent number of people just stay on that channel and continue watching. And yes, there are commercials in TV, and those commercials advertise other shows, maybe even the thing that's airing next, but it's not directly in the content. Whereas Good Mythical Morning, directly in the content, since there aren't really commercials, well, there are ads. I have to remind myself I have the ad blocker, so I'm not seeing them, but there are ads. But Good Mythical Morning, even as a huge and very successful YouTube channel, doesn't have the ability to make a commercial and put it in line with the ads that AdSense and YouTube runs on top of the shows. Yeah.
Let my melody set your wings free.
And ideally, if I ever do get monetized, knowing that I use an ad blocker and I hate ads, I'm always going to try to be as kind as possible with the amount of ads that I would allow. Like, theoretically, if I got big enough, it would make a lot of sense to have something that was like a Patreon goal, where it's just like, if every month this goal is met, my channel will stay ad free. Because that's ideally what I would want to do in the general. And my content does have ads at the very end. I ask you to like, subscribe, friend me on Steam, give me a gift card, give me a game, or support me via Patreon. That's an advertisement, but I only put it at the end where arguably barely anybody ever sees it or hears it.
That twig won't do a thing.
Do we want to discard a card? I think we do.
If I turned tail and ran, there wouldn't be a dragon.
But yeah, that's a long way of saying I'm gonna stop publishing the weekend things, see if that helps my channel. It would be nice if one little change, one little tweak all of a sudden makes my channel super successful.
Mankind's hatred.
I was really hoping to be like, and legitimately my channel was monetized within 3 years of making the content, which is still an insane amount of time to work and not make money of any sorts. But I was really hoping that this channel, by this point, would have been making, close to half of my monthly bills, and it's at zero of that. Now, arguably, if I was making $100, roughly, I don't think in a month, it was like 6 months' time, when I had 100 subscribers, I could very possibly at 1,000 subscribers strike, leader strike. Let's just do that and hope that was the right move. Should we play this?
Worship the primal flame.
Yeah. At 1,000 subscribers, then that'd be $1,000 every 6 months, and I was hoping would hope that the snowball effect would actually kick in. Yeah, it kind of did too. There was definitely a snowball effect that was kicking in for a brief time there. It doesn't seem like it's still happening, but I think going from 200 to 300 or 300 to 400 was a lot easier than going from 0 to 100.
Go ahead and play for now, fairies. Let's play.
I guess 6,000 subscribers then would be the next number to think about as a goal, and after that I would guess 12,000 subscribers would be approaching. Probably closer to 3,600 subscribers. I think that would be about where I'd like to reach a lot quicker than I have. But if it happened tomorrow, I'd be very happy on that idea. Like, roughly thinking 3,600 subscribers puts you in a nice position to probably stay monetized, to have growth, to have a replacement, new subscribers coming in to replace old subscribers who aren't watching anymore. If my numbers are right, if the monetization is the same as it was, then that potentially gets to covering monthly bills. If my math is right, maybe it's not. Yeah, it does kind of seem like if you can just get 10,000 subscribers, which is a big if, it feels like you could live very nicely as long as you live frugally and aren't just trying to ramp up. The problem is so many people, when they get money, think, okay, I've now leveled up and now I've gone from lower middle class to medium middle class, or therefore I have to live like somebody who's been medium middle class their entire life, and so I have to spend more and front more and play the role, or I have to spend more of the money that's coming in to invest in myself and invest in the projects to gain even more, and it's just like more when frankly I don't know if I would change that much. If I got 1 million subscribers overnight tomorrow and was getting like millions of dollars, I don't think I would change that much to how I make my content or make my YouTube channel. There's definitely stuff that I've said I would do, and I would do that. I would hire people out, and maybe they would bring in new ideas, so maybe there would be some more changes than I would expect, but it's not like all of a sudden I would turn my channel into a face cam channel. It's not like all of a sudden I would just play brand new games and completely ignore the fact that I've got a whole bunch of old games I want to talk about. I might do some of that. Like, it is extremely dangerous, certainly, to potentially gain success and then do a full 180 and end up losing that success because you changed how your channel went and the type of content you were making. Anyways, I guess I don't have anything else to really talk about since I didn't do anything. And I am definitely disappointed in myself for doing that. And I kind of am not really going to do too much probably tomorrow either. This entire week is, I think, going to be closer to a vacation week than anything, which frankly I need, so it's not a big deal. Excuse me. Suppose Halloween is also gonna happen, so there might be some lack of opportunity to record. I don't want to record things when potentially kids are going to
Did someone see me?
oh, that was pointless.
Twig won't do a thing.
Actually, it's probably not much of a real fear to be afraid of kids trick-or-treating, since they don't usually go door to door these days at all.
Welcome to the greatest show.
Quite talkative for someone without a
So
brain.
yeah, I don't think I have a real excuse. Let's see. Well, this is weird.
Trying calculations set. Ready to
I had to reset my monitor, and in the process of resetting my monitor, there's
I'll be back for round 2.
there's some weirdness happening. With the dots per inch. Let's see. Or at least I assume that's what's happening here. Let's see. Because we've got this like widescreen video. Also, I looked at some of the content copyright IDs, and honestly they're getting like copyright IDs for 30 seconds of not copyrightable ad copy, such as this Buzz Lightyear trailer. I don't think this is a video game though. This is a movie, so this doesn't even have anything to do with video games, does it? I wonder why I saw that then. But yeah, there's definitely some weirdness happening here, and in an effort to combat that, I've expanded and made the video kind of worse in the way it's gonna kind of bounce around like a DVD logo even further. And yeah, just incrementing it 1 pixel in every direction is really a lot. But honestly, I don't think it's gonna help, and honestly I should probably just give up on that idea. I don't know what to do, because I could possibly try to just blur the images, but then that would take a lot of effort. Like the best way I imagine you could do that is you just come over here and set this to like 1440p and then hit play, and then yeah, just that blurriness. But I bet the blurriness probably wouldn't help anything anyways, and that at a certain point you are just making things so ugly for no good reason. Yeah, and see, this says it's 1080p, but this feels like this is a 22:1 resolution that the monitor is on. The reason why I reset my second monitor, I did a full factory reset on it, is because the Wi-Fi was not connecting. I thought it was something wrong with the monitor. In the long run, I don't think it actually was something wrong with the monitor as much as it was just Wi-Fi settings. I had set it up. I think I generally have figured out what was wrong with my Wi-Fi and done as much as possible
Come and get it.
It still is in the weird position where the quality of service, every time I turn it on, it just kind of makes things worse. So with my new internet service provider, I'm just going to try and leave it off. But yeah, there was a lot of Wi-Fi settings where I've tried to adjust things left and right, and I just reset all of the values for a second on the router to see what the default settings were, and then set it back to that, and that worked the best. That is the problem with tinkering, certainly. My Tableau TV seems to be streaming perfectly fine, with the exception that it's getting poor signal, so I've got an amplifier arriving today. And you cannot deny that you are putting up a lot of upfront costs on a Tableau TV. The first thing you should do if you're going to try to be a cord cutter and you're in a big city that has a lot of over-the-air channels, or you watch very little TV in general, but if you watch very little TV in general, I'm not sure a DVR even makes sense. But the first thing to do would be to make sure you get the signal really well. So get an antenna of some sort, probably a really good one. Probably go for, if they say you need a small antenna, get a medium antenna. If they say you need a medium antenna, get a large antenna would be my recommendation.
Ready to witness my true strength?
Because overkill is not going to hurt you at all. Interesting.
Worship the primal flame.
So yeah. Don't be afraid to get an antenna that gets the signal really good, and that by doing that you can start with an antenna that maybe is, if you're getting a medium antenna, it's going to be about $80, $100. If you get a large antenna, maybe you're paying $200, maybe even $300 for the antenna to start with. If that works for you, then you wait a couple of months to get the DVR, which the Tableau DVR itself probably going to be about $200, but then you're going to probably want to either need to or want to plug in a USB hard drive, which potentially is going to be another $100 to $200. So plus, if you want the subscription and the commercial skipping and all of that features, you're going to have to pay a monthly fee on that, or $150 for a lifetime fee on each Tableau device DVR. So yeah, it's not like you just are getting it for free. You can break up the cost. I like the idea of getting the Tableau versions that have hard drives built in, because it's you don't want to literally unplug the USB hard drive, or to have the USB hard drive fail, and then you lose all your recordings and everything like that. But the trade-off for having the model that doesn't have a hard drive that you can built in is that you can have it plug into a TV, and there's really no reason why there shouldn't be both. Like, there should be an HDMI out on the quad tuner model that has a hard drive built in. Also, there's plenty of room for that. Arguably, the SATA interface for a laptop hard drive connecting for the built-in one is probably a little bit faster and better too. I wouldn't go crazy and put an SSD into a Tableau. It doesn't seem like it needs it, nor does it seem like it would really benefit from that. There is a potential hybrid drive SSD concept that they could make, but they probably would have to add 5 or 6 tuners at that point. And honestly, they should make a 5 or 6 tuner version, because there is enough instances out there where you potentially want to be like the Hopper DVR that can record. Well, the Hopper DVR that I have for the whole home can record like 16 things, I think, at the same time, or definitely at least 6 things at the same time.
Worship the primal flame.
I guess this is a card you just toss. 'Cause if you draw it early, you just discard it for a different card.
Allow me to bestow a crimson kiss.
But yeah, it's an initial investment. Now, it's an initial investment compared to that is way cheaper compared to having a DVR cable service, which basically this cord cutting experiment that I'm doing. I've looked at everything that I watch, and the only things that have really stood out is if you want to watch Adult Swim, Tableau over the air, it's not going to work. But since you're going through a Roku TV more than anything, the Adult Swim channel app will let you watch Rick and Morty, for instance, fairly quickly around the time it is airing. So, like, it's not like you're going to be seasons and seasons behind for Adult Swim. If you want to watch Food Network, that's kind of a sticker. If you want to watch TNT, the TNT app on Roku pretty much lets you have that. And there's, frankly, the Snowpiercer series is the only, like, TNT original of any mention. So, but it's on the TNT app. And yeah, it's just Food Network that's kind of a problem. Like, you would I don't know what you would do there. And TBS, like, if you want to watch reruns of Supernatural or Charmed, which is mostly all that gets cycled on TBS, like, that too is one of those. That's one of those. That's a channel that still doesn't really have an option. So if you want to watch a lot of Iron Chef, Good Eats, Chopped, things like that from the Food Network, there's no solution there. But that's it. Like, yeah. So unless you as far as things that I watch, I'm sure there's people that love sports or love movies or love something else. The FX, like What We Do in the Shadows, for instance, it's on Hulu. So as long as you have a Hulu subscription, that can adjust for that. Now, Hulu would be kind of a monthly subscription. And you're not getting any of the Netflix originals or Disney Plus originals. So if you're heavy into one of those extra services, that would not completely eliminate a monthly service. If you have Amazon Prime, you can purchase individual episodes for the high price of $1.99 for some shows. I guess have to get rid of that.
Did someone see me?
And then go ahead and play this.
Many pardons.
That was almost amusing.
You're on! Ow!
But that is also what I'm experimenting with right now with the Tableau and going to an over-the-air free TV DVR. It's not, you really shouldn't go into it expecting a 100% accuracy one-to-one conversion. It is much closer to, you're going to lose. Honestly, I would imagine it's 97% the same stuff. plus you're gaining over-the-air channels that you probably don't see on any cable channel, because regardless of whether it's Dish, DirecTV, or any other like cable provider, there's a lot of over-the-air channels that are just not going to be included in that. They have no value to the cable providers unless they don't agree to rebroadcast them, even if they weren't asking for like a rebroadcasting fee really at all. And that's the whole thing, is that they're always constantly fighting over these rebroadcasting fees. But yeah, let's say it's 97% of the things you're already watching you can get over the air, depending on what you're watching. That could wildly vary, but in my case it's about 97%. And then you're gaining some new stuff. A lot of it may be older. There is a significant, obvious, older collection of shows. Things like Hogan's Heroes, F Troop, Night Court, syndicated shows from 2-3 decades ago. Those things are not typically airing on cable. So, yeah, there is a difference there.
My raging flames have got your back.
But if you're willing to watch some of those old shows, that can actually be a good thing and not just taken as kind of a weird thing or a negative thing.
You're on.
Twig won't do a thing.
Excuse me. I had the feeling I might be getting sick yesterday. I'm not sure if that's really true, but it would be the season. Yeah. But I guess I'll talk about it later. This cord cutting experiment. Okay. You do this. And then guess you do this.
Ow. Ready to witness my true strength?
There's nothing to fear.
It will be a different scenario, certainly, if I have to install an antenna on the roof. Although I don't think I'm really going to have to. Like,
And so our pact is
and it might be a different scenario if I have to remove the Tableau from being directly plugged into the network with a wired connection versus using a Wi-Fi connection. Like, Wi-Fi. Yeah, Wi-Fi, particularly the 2.4 gigahertz, kind of sucks. And it's becoming more apparent that that's the case. Whereas 10 years ago, there was, I think, less of a realization on that fact, or it was a different comparison.
Worship the primal flame.
I was hoping that would have hit the other one, but whatever. Do we want to play this? There you go. Alright, well, Minecraft put out a Bedrock or Java edition article, which kind of seems like it's fairly late and to put out this kind of article. And there's very little pictures here for a article talking about Minecraft. Skimming over this and not really reading this article, though, it seems like they are probably trying to push people into doing the Bedrock edition and not the Java edition, which I wouldn't be surprised if there is a slight thought at some point. I have no idea how I just lost, but I am fairly certain I just did. Yeah, there could be a slight concern that Minecraft would stop supporting the Java edition. That being said, if they never added anything new to the Java edition whatsoever, and they even went to the extreme level of making it impossible to use the Java edition in its current form, and tried to just force everybody over to the Bedrock edition, which does not support a significant amount of mods and plugins. There is a high chance that people would get just really upset and hack Minecraft, like, instead of converting over to the Bedrock edition. I watched the quick look. Coincidentally, I almost never go to giantbomb.com. In fact, this may be the first time I've ever even been to their website. But apparently they're welcoming their newest member, Jess. But I also watched the Marvel's Guardians of the Galaxy. And what this is closer to, and I'm a little surprised that I didn't think of this earlier as far as what kind of game it is, because I kept wondering. It's like, it looked like a Telltale game for the way they were presenting it, and I finally saw some gameplay footage, which they're really not focusing on the gameplay footage, and I now realize it is a Mass Effect clone, for lack of a better term. The reason why I clicked on this in particular is because Jeff Grubb, who I can't even find a link to him. Let's see. See if this is Jeff Grubb. Nope, that's Jeff Gersman. Too many Jeffs. He has been allowed to do one of the side videos that they are doing as far as actual video game news, and talking about rumors and things. He actually hasn't really interacted with any of the other people at Giant Bomb at all, which it definitely seems weird. Like here we can kind of look at their shows just to show where this is. They have Albumer, which talks about music albums, a thing about Power Rangers, teaching Dan Reichert things, or having Dan Reichert teach other people things. I don't know what Best of Giant Bomb really does. Born to Run is a Dark Souls or Bloodborne run. Bed and Breakfast. I think these are all newer shows. Some of them definitely not. Like Game of the Year is not going to be anything. Some of this. But yeah, here's Grub Snacks. They're really trying to make him feel like he's the one that's going to be breaking news going forward, in kind of a direct comparison to the Washington Post video game news breaker character. I think he's from at the Washington Post. Which, in all fairness, there should be more than one person that is breaking all the news and actually doing something that seems sort of like editorial, investigative journalism, not editorial journalism. Investigative journalism would be the closest article way to describe it, I'd imagine. The problem so far, though, is it seems like he's getting a lot of push and promotion, but I'm not sure he's really broken any news at all. There's a real danger of a lot of people just self-aggrandizing and saying, oh, I did this, I broke this news, I broke this news. You've certainly seen people, kids, used to do this all the time when they were very young. It's like, oh, I thought of that, I invented that video game, that was my idea. And it's not even like, and that's a very subconscious thing where people think they thought of it, or it's just a general idea, so they think their idea is being stolen when really it isn't. So yeah, there's I'm not sure he's really breaking any news, but he is definitely positioning himself as a source of authority, and inherently Giant Bomb is smack in the middle of mainstream video game journalists pretending like they're sources of authority, in the same way that, heck, even CNN, Fox News, all of them pretend like they're sources of authority and then often are just winging it or making things up. So it'll be a while before I think I would trust Jeff Grubb as a source of authority. And frankly, Grub Snacks as a show is boring. These new shows are terribly, terribly boring. A lot of these are very old shows too. Like, the only thing I want to see from Giant Bomb is Quick Look, Game of the Year, and the Bombcast. And that was even when I was watching watching Giant Bomb content. Now I'm not even doing it, and arguably that is in part why I haven't been scheduling videos so much, is because I haven't been taking the time to listen to Giant Bomb and listen to that long-running 2-3 hour podcast while scheduling videos. And see, if you want to look at like the archives of older content, let's see, Brad and Vinny, not at the company anymore. I think you'll find that. I don't even know who these two characters are. I don't even know who these people are. But you can see there's a whole bunch of shows that they tried and abandoned, and that's not a bad thing. Apparently they had a whole developer cast at one point. I didn't even know about that. And I've been listening to Giant Bomb podcast for a long time. I think a lot of their content gets put behind their paywall and very few people see it. Abby Russell seems to be swinging both ways. Both at the Nextlander, where Brad and Vinny are, a new website, new YouTube channel, and she has shown up on the Bombcast, which we don't have to assume that there actually is a animosity there. It may be just that it was a bit of a contractual dispute, and everybody decided to go their own ways. Let's see. Yeah, amicably. Which ideally that is the way to do things, is to end relationships amicably and not leave in a fight or burn bridges. Although sometimes depending on your own personality, burning bridges and leaving the fight is the right way to do things also, because you don't want to run into a situation where you break up with a bad boyfriend, for instance, and then you just come crawling back to him because you didn't break up in a big enough fight, and so you don't remember the hurt and the pain and the frustration and the upsetness there.
I'll be back for round 2.
Some people really have to get to that point. Okay.
I'll head the vanguard. There's a lot more where that came from. I've been keeping this in reserve. I'll blast my way through. You won't hold me back.
Yeah, I don't think I'm gonna win here. He hits me with that, and then he hits me with 4 and he wins. So I saw this Jess / Void Burgers, what she goes by, on like last week's Giant Bomb cast. So yeah, I don't know if there's really anything to say about her. I have no idea about her. It is definitely not my goal or my intent to investigate. Investigate new employees.
My crystal sword will bring a new tomorrow.
Seems like she's going to be a video producer, so she's barely even going to be playing or reviewing games, although at Giant Bomb in particular, being any employee doesn't generally mean you won't be on the Giant Bomb cast and you won't be talking about some game that you're covering. I think there may be 2 or 3 people that actively work at Giant Bomb that I know of that don't end up talking about video games or playing video games. And see, if they were running Giant Bomb and the Bombcast more like Sirius XM radio and things like that, you would probably have a audio video producer just employed by, what is it, Red Letter Media that owns them now, that would be in charge of running a podcast studio and doing several podcasts over the course of the week. And they wouldn't be individual employees specifically of just Giant Bomb. Because yeah, video producer for Giant Bomb isn't a ton of work, as much as it could be, because it's not like they do face cams when they're doing quick looks. They aren't doing a massive like amount of video trickery and video production in the podcast. So yeah, I would think Giant Bomb needs video editors way more than they actually need video producers. And on the other hand, is like you could look at Jessie Voidberger and you could maybe assume, oh, she's got colored hair, she's a little bit plumper, she kind of looks like she's going nerdy with the glasses, but then trying to be hardcore with the leather jacket. You can make a lot of just immediate assumptions, and she is working at Giant Bomb, so you just have to assume that she's probably an SJW, but maybe not a flaming out loud admitted SJW as some of the other people in California in particular might be. So you can make a lot of assumptions there, but they are just assumptions and stupid assumptions to make just on one picture. You could also certainly make assumptions that she was just a diversity hire, but in all fairness, Giant Bomb has struggled specifically to get female perspectives. And yeah, she is a white female, so that might be a problem for some SJWs, but Abby Russell was brought in as a female and kind of as a diversity hire, and it's pretty much impossible to deny that, because she was brought in as an improv comic who barely played any video games and didn't know anything. And arguably, there is this problem, and I need to talk about video games news instead of this rant, so I'll try and keep it short. There's this problem specifically in California and Manhattan, LA area in Manhattan, where you're just there, and because you're there, you were born lucky, and unless you become homeless and fail miserably, or something terrible happens to you, you're just handed jobs that, frankly, a lot of people in Manhattan and California don't deserve, and they don't do a good job at it. There's this podcast group in New York, and the employees are totally incompetent. And SiriusXM, like, a lot of their interns and people are like totally incompetent and have no rights to be to be employed at all at such a prominent job, at such a prominent position, when a single YouTuber can like run better ad blockers and show better videos and talk about articles better, or just run OBS better than they are doing it, or that's a real problem.
I'll be back for round 2.
So yeah, you could again say that a lot of the people, and not specifically Voidburger, but a lot of the people that have been hired at Giant Bomb are just hired because they happen to be in the right place way more than they happen to actually deserve the position that they've gotten.
I'll head the vanguard.
And yeah, that's a problem, certainly. But I can't complain about them hiring women at Giant Bomb specifically. Like, females are 50% of the population, roughly speaking, these days. It would have made a lot more sense for it to have been 50% of the Giant Bomb crew always.
Pay thy reverence. Heaven demands it.
G4 also kind of has that problem in that they are looking to address that, I think, as well as possible. But yeah, there is, with Morgan Webb not coming back to X-Play, there is kind of a dude heavy aspect with Adam Sessler just running X-Play. They need to hand a show that is, I mean, I hate to just call it Y Play, but there probably should be something that is, let's jokingly call it Y Play, as an X chromosome and Y chromosome. But there needs to be a show like X Play called Y Play or something like that. That is just somebody like maybe Jesse Verdberger who would review games from a different perspective. They need to give more voices, more of a voice to more characters than just Adam Sessler, because Adam Sessler's too old and he's gonna burn out fairly quickly. Ironically though, I would say Giant Bomb doesn't really feel like it knows what it's doing in general from the outside, and it should try to make people think it knows what it's doing. By which I mean it doesn't feel like it hired people. When it was owned by CBS, it made the whole Giant Bomb East setup, and then that kind of immediately fails. And well, it doesn't immediately fail, but it fails as soon as the new acquisition happens 4 or 5 years later. And they hire Abby, and then they kind of get rid of Abby or sidetrack her and don't really do anything with him. They hire Ben. Ben leaves mysteriously. Ben comes back mysteriously, with no real explanation as to what happened in the meantime.
I'll hit the vanguard.
Worship the primal flame.
Yeah, I think to wrap up this thing is hiring Jesse Voidberger could be a good thing or a bad thing. The problem though is with Giant Bomb right now, they just don't feel like they have a plan as far as what their website really is going to be, or maybe their plan is to turn the website into this more of a lifestyle website and get away from video games quite a bit, which then that's something I am totally not interested in. Yeah, the potential for growth at Giant Bomb, I think, is incredibly small. I just don't think. Best case scenario, you get a next generation of gamers in there, and you keep your current fan base happy. Worst case scenario, you just wither and die on the vine. Let's do this one.
I'll hit the
This one.
vanguard.
I've got nothing to fear.
And I suppose the whole whiskey media stuff, I'm not even sure that was sold off. So the idea of a movie Vine, a comic Vine, I don't know if it was really called movie Vine or not. Some of those other websites with databases behind them, I think probably have either been broken up or just failed for so long that there's no longer anything to say with that, or anything valuable around that.
There's a lot more where that came from.
Okay.
My heart is a guarded pearl.
Okay. What can we do?
What is this weird feeling?
Moving on, since I've been kind of rambling for an hour here. Here we have a game on Steam, Midnight Scenes, The Nanny, which looks like it's a point-and-click adventure game. And see, this is kind of pixely, but it's zoomed in a lot of screenshots to kind of adjust for that. And there's some shadowing and shading, which that can certainly help, particularly in this shot. Like a low effort version of this image, it would just be solid one color and not have shading. The hands would be solid one color. Those would have been limitations that would have been acceptable or just expected in a game from like the early 90s, but if you're making something that kind of looks like that nowadays, adding some tricks, adding some polish. Makes this slightly interesting. This is $3.59 English only. I think it deserves a follow. Bane and Rush.
What'll drop first, my boss or your tears? Many pardons. Oh, I'm such a wimp.
I don't know if we did the games that came out this month or last month from Steam, so we might want to talk about that too. If we can find some free time. Let's also see if we can maybe play something different other than trying to just get a victory with Dragoncraft. Like yesterday was so lucky, and now it's going to be a little bit more difficult. Actually, we should be playing ranked, shouldn't we? So we're going to make it even more difficult on this. Come over here. Rotation. Ranked. Let's see. Gamatsu says the Final Fantasy Pixel Remastered series Final Fantasy V launches November 10th. Which, yeah. It kind of sucks that the Final Fantasy series is being kind of revitalized as what looks like a NES clone pixely game, something that would be like free with ads on a cell phone. But I don't know what to.
A pointed sword deserves a pointed
I don't know what to really say there, because yeah, there is relevancy somewhat, particularly I think for people who had played Final Fantasy to go back and potentially try and play these games, but in reality I think there's so many better modern JRPGs out there that it's practically impossible to justify something like this. And how much of this really is the same as the original game? There's probably more polished AI. I mean, user interface. That probably has been polished up. I bet each of the characters have been redrawn in and maybe scaled up somewhat. But I also wouldn't be surprised if these are fairly close to the original sprites, just like scaled up to be slightly bigger at a higher resolution. The actual grass here and background probably is not any different. Yeah. So I'd almost have to look at a picture of what Final Fantasy V originally looked like, which is an interesting idea. Let's see. Let's see. What did Final Fantasy V originally look like? There was a Game Boy Advance version of it that looked like this, and you can see, yeah, it's a little blurrier and the interface is a little rougher, but yeah, doesn't drastically look different. Moving on. I don't want to get stuck in the weeds wondering. Super Mario 64 on Switch Online has the Rumble version in Japan, but not in the West. The Japanese players got the Shindao version, but there's still a way to access it in America and Europe. To do that, I believe, and this is true for, I think, most of the games, is if you want to play the Japanese version, you have to go into the entire system interface and switch the user interface to Japanese, which, that's stupid. Particularly since there's already menus to switch between and pick between the American and European versions of other games. I believe the trade-off with the Shindao version of Mario 64 is that it was a re-release in Japan after Mario 64 had already been fairly successful in the West, and because it uses the Rumble Pack, it can't use the memory pack. It was only until later that they came up with the kind of ridiculous kludgy solution of having to prompt the player to unplug the Rumble Pack to plug in a memory pack to save the game. Like, there really is just no excuse for the Rumble Pack to not have had some way to have a memory card plugged into the bottom of that, or for them to have 2 slots, or for the memory pack, in fact, just to be on the console itself and instead of being in the controller. The crazy idea with the Nintendo 64, and people probably don't really remember this that much, the idea with it was that you would take your controller with you from friend's house to friend's house, and
I'll blast my way through.
Yeah.
That was delightful.
Worship the primal flame.
So much for that axe.
That was not something that was really done that much, but the idea was definitely there, that you would take your controller, it would have your save games, it would have your Rumble Pack. If you had a Rumble Pack, that would be your controller. They specifically made the controller plug for the Nintendo 64 to be something that could be plugged in and plugged out a lot more than the connectors for the Super NES previously, or the Nintendo 64, both of which were semi-permanent, thought to be semi-permanently connected, and that there really was never going to be a reason to unplug or plug in a controller. In fact, it's a little surprising that both the NES controller and the Super NES controller weren't permanently affixed, but the NES established the idea of the controllers having accessories and did so well selling accessories like the Zapper and other things that drastically changed the direction in which video game consoles were developed. There is easily an alternate universe where controllers were always just hardwired to the system, and there was nothing else to it.
Scatter like the blossom. Time to dance for your life.
And we're kind of getting to the point where
This victory is
a wireless connection is just going to be so fast, and the amount of input lag and things is going to be so unnoticeable, or you would have to potentially buy a $400 or $500 professional controller to even know the difference. And at a certain point, if you're playing at a professional level, you're going to be playing mouse and keyboard anyways. We could see a future where there is no thought whatsoever to plugging in controllers. We're pretty much there already. Like, the PlayStation and the Xbox controllers don't plug in, and the Nintendo Switch controllers do plug in, but that's because of the design of the Switch. I'm not sure if specifically people by default just assume that the Shindao version is the best version. This is also, I think, the version that 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 gets rid of the voice line that sounds like it's saying "so long, Gabe Bowser," when all claims are that it actually says "so long, Sir Bowser," or "so long, A Bowser." We could try and see, look that up some more. People are generally not happy with the frame rate and performance and the level of emulation happening with the Nintendo 64 versions. It is not the it is not not the way you should play a Nintendo 64 game. Now, oddly, I won't by default just say use a Raspberry Pi, where for anything before Nintendo 64, I'd say use a Raspberry Pi to emulate a Nintendo 64 ROM. But for Nintendo 64 games, the Pis don't run particularly well. I would say just go with a PC. There are other ways, I'm sure, to get something like a PlayStation 3 or an Xbox 360 to have an emulator on there and run a Nintendo 64 ROM just fine. But I think going down that route is probably not worth it unless you just have those devices already and want to experiment. It's way easier to just stay up to date and go through the kind of difficult process of getting, I think Mugen 64 would be the RetroArch core you would want to emulate Nintendo 64 games on the PC. And I don't see really a value. I think it's stupid to potentially want to play Nintendo 64 games with this controller. I think Nintendo 64 games were better with the GameCube controller when they were ported to GameCube even than this controller. This controller was a terrible controller, and people have nostalgia for it because it's silly, but it's not realistic. Apparently you have to create a second account registered to Japan and access the Japanese shop to play the Shindao version, which, yeah. At a certain point, Nintendo's legacy, and they talked about this on the Giant Bomb, is not something that's being maintained well. And that's a shame. At a certain point, Nintendo's not treating the Western world as well as
Only one stands to ascend to.
sorry, apparently kind of sleepy today. I'm not really going here. I'm reading too. That's part of the problem. But yeah, Nintendo's just not doing well with charging as much as they're charging for this new expansion. Oddly tying in the Animal Crossing expansion with the Switch Online expansion, giving different versions, treating the West worse than the rest, than Japan, when honestly they could have just put out the same version everywhere if they were trying to put no effort into it. Yeah, maybe there's some weird no, I don't even think it would be a copyright thing. It seems like they specifically took the effort to give a different version to the West for no good reason. Let's see. The general differences between the Shindao version on the title screen has a updated copyright, but if that was the case, apparently there was also an IQ version. That must have been one of those weird Japanese only streaming services or play it from a hotel version. Mario's head looks pretty much the same, maybe a little bit more polished. You have the little controller logo. Like, is that as far as they went? They saw that there was a controller logo, they didn't want to change it, so they just said, well, just give them the US and European version. Or is it maybe a direct attempt or idea to say, we want to give you the version you're nostalgic for, but instead of
these skies.
Shut up and burn!
instead of offering the options, they're just forcing the options, which would be very Japanese. But yeah, I'm not seeing a big difference there. File select screen seems to be slightly different. Heads up textures are slightly different. And see here you have like a more direct Japanese translation of what the letter says. Instead of saying, "Dear Mario, please come to the castle. I've baked a cake for you. Yours truly, Princess Toadstool Peach." The more direct, and this is where you get into the danger of how the Japanese language does not directly translate or make sense, and where localization kind of makes sense in this case. I think there probably would have been a bit of a scandal if
I'm done.
if you put in the sentence, "I made a cake and I'm waiting for you." It's kind of crazy, a crazy letter in general. Sending a letter to say, "Dear Mario, please come over to my castle," makes sense. To say in a letter, which would take time to be delivered, "I've already made a cake," is insanity. And "I'm waiting for you" is just another level of insanity. Like, she's just sitting there waiting as this cake is deflating and getting cold, which you don't even get the cake until the end of the game. So 60 hours later, you get this old stale cake, which 60 hours of gameplay you could easily think could be multiple days, but you have to assume it all takes place in one day. I would say that would make the most sense. But yeah, I think there'd be a scandal saying "I'm waiting for you," because that does kind of imply "I made a cake and I'm waiting for you." You could easily take that as I'm waiting for you to come over to a booty call. And it's not crazy to localize to say, put a "Dear Mario" at the top, or Princess Toadstool Peach instead of just "from Peach," which is almost certainly just says Peach spelled out. It doesn't even say "from," I imagine. Or probably says Peach this way, reading backwards, but maybe not. I don't know. Yep, that's the weirdness. Is some Japanese is top to down, depending on if it's katakana or hiragana writing. That's why I never could get anywhere close to understanding the writing or reading Japanese. In the Japanese version, you don't say hello, you don't say okie dokie when you choose a save file. Yeah. Doesn't say Mamma Mia. Yeah. Doesn't say the infamous so long A Bowser. Since his name is Koopa in Japan. And apparently if you are idling, he'll say, I'm tired and dream about pasta. Princess Peach doesn't have any voice acting in the Shandaru version. Yep, and that was kind of my understanding, is that getting Rumble is probably not the best version. In all honesty, the best version of Mario 64 is probably a complete remake in Unity. That there have been a couple of fan projects like that. This is a better picture if you can recognize that this is a ship versus just bubbles. Here you have stars floating instead of a star box. They moved the star. Most of the time, the Japanese versions of games tend to be either significantly easier or harder. There definitely was a time when they were making the Western games more difficult,
And so I'll pack these
particularly in the arcade days. And you could certainly look at these kinds of comparisons for a lot of games, and it's not really gonna it's not really gonna matter or change much otherwise. There's more text that are being translated slightly differently. It also is, yeah, probably trivial for somebody to add Rumble to a Unity remake of Mario 64. You don't even probably have to really think too hard about it, because you could just watch the amount of health whenever he takes damage. You get a Rumble there, and whenever he runs into a wall or something, maybe Rumble there, and that's about all I bet Mario 64 had. It would be a much larger, massive overtaking to take old games and give them something close to it, like a big 3D Rumble feature. Where there's a lot of kind of consistent, obvious vibration. And even in modern games, there's often very little recognizable vibration happening in the Rumble. It's easily forgotten. Although I would certainly complain if a new console came out or a new controller came out and it didn't have Rumble in it. But as somebody who plays games all the time, the Rumble almost always is completely forgotten about. Do this. Do this.
My heart is a garden bird.
Do this.
There's a lot more where that came from.
Smack
I'll
that
see you in
one.
purgatory.
Then smack that one.
Wasn't good enough.
Moving on with video game news, a new Returnal update adds suspend points in a photo mode. The much requested ability to save progress has been added today in today's version 2.0 patch, which honestly that feels like really it has that should have been in the game on day one, and it doesn't, I think, bring enough change that somebody would want to go back and play Returnal. You basically at this point would have to give Returnal away in some kind of like PlayStation Now feature or Xbox Pass, Games Pass feature, just to try and get people to try it again. The suspend cycles Returnal will create a single-use suspend point. Once you resume playing, the suspend point is deleted and can't be used again. So it's basically just suspending the game, and instead of potentially making you play the entirety of the run in one sitting, that is hardly adding the kind of save points I imagine people would want, or would like to have. Although it is a roguelike, so it's not uncommon for roguelikes to not have save points, or to only save at specific points. Rogue Legacy, for instance, if you exited out of that game, I don't think you started in the same room. When you loaded back in, you may not even start on the same run.
That was almost amusing.
Ready to witness my true strength?
My raging flames have got your back. Twig won't do a thing.
Moving on, Konami has released a striking trailer for a Scottish shoot-'em-up called Cygni, Cygni, C-Y-G-N-I. Let's see what this looks like. See, what I would kind of want is almost a plugin that could flip the image on specifically videos. And I don't think I have any kind of plugin that would do that, but and that would be kind of weird, but it would be better, honestly, to be able to flip the videos than it would be to constantly yeah. Yeah, if there was a plugin that could flip the videos instead of having the video go in circles, that would be great, but it would have to only flip the videos and not do anything else with the text. I could certainly flip the text, but that would be crazy to show. As for the game Cygni, it looks interesting. Let's see.
Genuflect before darkness eternal.
I'm getting very distracted today. getting very distracted here. Sorry. I'm looking for an extension that I'll have to play with off screen to potentially flip the videos or change the videos. Like, if we could get away from the videos bouncing around like a DVD logo, I'd like to do that. But I'd also like to stop people from claiming they own things that aren't copyrightable. Moving on. GameStop is selling PlayStation 5 bundles online with early access for Pro members. I think this story has already been talked about, but I guess they're doing it again. Switch's Nintendo 64, Genesis controllers, and Genesis controllers are back in stock in the US. I kind of would like to see a teardown of the Nintendo 64 controllers. Steam's Halloween, Autumn, and Winter sales have been dated. Now, I probably won't do anything special, but it would... I'd like to potentially push people to friend me on Steam, gift me gift cards, or gift me games, particularly during the Halloween, all the Autumn and Winter sales. Halloween sale basically has to happen like right now, as we're speaking.
Bow before Dark Dragoon, ruler of the skies.
It wouldn't be crazy if the Steam Deck is going on sale to potentially pre-order a Steam Deck, if it actually has any kind of discount to it. It still would be a fairly difficult decision to even get the cheapest Steam Deck, but not a crazy decision if you can get like $50 off of it. The thing about a Steam Deck in particular is it's going to be your one source. Like, you're not going to have Steam Deck clones come out for a long time, so the chance of anything being particularly discounted is fairly low. Yeah. So the Halloween sale is tomorrow, October 28th through November 1st. The Autumn sale is November 24th to 30th. And the Winter sale is the 22nd through the January 5th. And questionable how big any of those sales certainly will be. Pretty much need to pin that tab, so come on. Why is it not letting me pin it? Well, I don't know why it's not letting me right click on it, but whatever. We already talked about this, but Video Games Chronicle says the Switch Online's Nintendo 64 emulation has been met with criticism. Button mapping, graphical issues, and a lack of controller pack features are among issues being reported by players. I suppose that might also be another reason why they would have given a different version to the Japanese audience, is that the A buttons and the B buttons potentially would have been swapped. I don't know if that was really a case in the Nintendo 64 era, but it could make some sense. Let's see. PlayStation 5 will reportedly be in stock in Argos, that's in the UK, in store and online this Wednesday. Video Game Chronicles talking about a lot of places that are reportedly going to have stock of the PlayStation 5. Which it's not had stock for the PlayStation 5 for quite a while. Video Game Chronicle says the next BlizzCon has been cancelled and the event is being reimagined. I heavily suspect that there's never going to be another in-person BlizzardCon or BlizzCon. By taking this step, they also are taking, I think, the first step to getting rid of the name Blizzard. And I don't know if you turn it back to Activision at that point, or if you choose a whole new name. I imagine you just try and choose a whole new name. But yeah. The thing about BlizzCon is that when you look at the games that they have, none of them are particularly in good favor. Like Diablo, the new Diablo game that's still in work, nobody's super interested in that amongst all the controversy. World of Warcraft, people aren't that interested in that. Overwatch, people aren't that interested in that. StarCraft, is there even a StarCraft project that's really in development? Hearthstone, it's not particularly interesting. And I kind of assume that this is just another Diablo character. Otherwise, I have no idea who this is supposed to even represent. He could be a World of Warcraft character. Yeah. I'm not sure I've actually heard an allegation specifically. The problem with the Activision Blizzard accusations in general is that they've just turned into this big soup where you can't figure out which accusations have even been made at this point in my mind. So I've definitely heard harassment accusations, sexual discrimination. Oh yeah, there was the accusation that women were just given more tasks and more work, and the boys were effectively allowed to just do whatever they wanted, which that would be sexual discrimination. Yeah. But yeah, even if a BlizzCon did come back under a new name as a company, I don't think they want that big event. They've been gouging people on the price of tickets to BlizzCon for years, if not nearly a decade, giving away World of Warcraft mounts exclusive to if you attend BlizzCon. And people were just going or buying tickets or buying digital tickets was the scandal a couple of years ago, just to get the free mount. That they were charging people to watch their stream. So yeah, I heavily suspect we're going to see this is the end of BlizzCon, which it should be. Frankly, there should be an end of most cons. They don't make sense in a modern time. It's like the difference between before you had email and the internet and now. Like, there's really no reason to go in person to most conventions. Moving on, Xbox Series X and S demand has driven a 16% jump in gaming revenue for Microsoft.
To desire transformation is sin.
Console sales are up, but relative quarterly content and services revenue is relatively unchanged. This is an improvement over the news before, though, where they didn't meet their sales expectations. So this is a way of rephrasing the numbers or manipulating the numbers to make it look like they did well. Did better. 16% sales increase could be directly attributable to just the pandemic.
My heart is a garden bird.
I'll head the vanguard. Ready to witness my true strength? I've been keeping this in. I'll blast my way through.
Hit this.
That was delightful.
Video Game Chronicles says lapsed Far Cry 6 players are receiving taunting emails from Ubisoft, which is no way to run a business. Like, if there is even the possibility that one of these emails goes to somebody who has died, or somebody who is dying of COVID or cancer or whatever,
Weakness the
being
power.
taunted because you aren't playing the game is not
deliver the most luxurious
not
sex.
professional. And I don't see how this really is going to bring back any players. You already got their money. They already bought the game. Why even think that this is a smart advertising campaign? Like, are you so obsessed about keeping people playing so you can sell
Victory is a testament to
sell
my strength.
DLC? Like, that you would risk creating bad press for yourself by taunting people? Or, I mean, win back as a concept. Let's see if we can maybe play some Shadowcraft instead. Yeah, we won't get anywhere with that either. Win back as a concept is not something that I think you have to do much of in video games. You should just instead hope that they kind of buy your next game. Let's see how bad this thing is.
Let the duel.
GameIndustry.biz's managing editor Brenda Sinclair shared screenshots. I wonder if this was specifically because he was the managing editor. You disappoint me reads the subject line. It was amusing watching you fail, and surely you can do better than this, the message says. Yeah. That's stupid advertising. And it's kind of a great example of how people don't know how to advertise. Advertising is lies and voodoo more than it's actually a science. People don't know how much advertising really works, if it works at all, whereas advertisers claim it works. Advertisers claim they know what they're doing when very often they don't know what they're doing, and it's fairly obvious that they don't know what they're doing.
Lots of bones, but make it fashion.
Moving on, Pikmin Bloom is Niantic's mobile Pikmin game is rolling out today. The Pokemon Go Studio worked with Shigeru Miyamoto on the iOS and Android app. Let's see. It's built on the concepts of making the players go outside and walk. Yeah, well, there's a lot of reasons why you shouldn't be going outside and walking at the moment. Let's see. Pikmin are central theme of the game. The main aim is to leave a trail of flower petals behind you to make the world prettier. You have finite amount of petals, which can be topped up by sending Pikmin to find out and bring back fruit. You can feed to the Pikmin as nectar and make them grow new petals for you to collect. There's a problem with this concept, clearly, and they didn't think of it.
Oh, are you in need of medicine?
Like, you have a finite amount of petals. You send Pikmin out to find and bring back fruit, which is what happens in the game, sure. But you don't have petals as a currency in Pikmin games, because the petals and the flowers in Pikmin are attached to the heads of the Pikmin. So if you have a finite amount of petals, you scalped / chopped the hair maybe off of the Pikmin. You've probably hurt the Pikmin. They didn't think of this at all. And then you're using the petals to plant more Pikmin. I guess the flowers are supposed to represent Pikmin, so you're planting baby Pikmin that never sprout into new Pikmin, but theoretically should sprout into new Pikmin.
Kinda haunted. No, literally.
Yeah, this game in the Pikmin universe doesn't make sense.
This armor's turning out pretty useful.
Yeah, and see, they've made the flowers even more realistic on the Pikmin's head.
It seems like
And the leaves. Leaves, flowers, they're basically the same thing. I don't know if biologically there is really any difference between a leaf and a flower. Notice here also, whereas everything else has kind of a diversity in color, the depiction of Japan is all pink sakura leaves. Which, okay. But whatever. And so, yeah. That flower is like the head of a Pikmin, or I would see a Pikmin thinking that a flower is the head of it. On top of them clearly not really thinking much about this,
Aren't you
there is
popular?
a next problem in that the game just sounds incredibly boring and way worse than just potentially playing Pokemon Go, because at least I understand Pokemon Go. I can't help but think that this is also a game that has such little happening for it that if they were to even try to maintain it, they're literally just going to have to sell you flowers and nothing else. Now, I will say, mobile games seem to have more of an opportunity to potentially grow over time, so you could add more features, but I think you're just starting way too small. Destiny Child, the mobile game I play, the lewd mobile game I love to play, has grown considerably in the 2 or 3 years I've been playing it, but it, when I first started playing it, was still a very large game. Moving on, November's PlayStation Plus games have been revealed early. So it's going to be Knockout City, The Walking Dead, Saints and Sinners, First Class Trouble, Kingdom of Amalur Reckoning. Let's see. Video Game Chronicle says Smash Brothers Wave Race and more look set for the Switch's Nintendo 64 library. We're still trying to keep a hard look on some of the rare games. The Diddy Kong Racing game in particular is one to keep an eye out for. If they're not willing to have eventually get to Conker's Bad Fur Day or have the other rare games, then
The real battle begins.
then I'm going.
I purge the earth.
I suspect they're not going to go very far. My doorbell is weird, so it's going off. Let me just make sure somebody isn't ringing the doorbell consistently. I'm going to be right back. Okay, I'm back. Sorry about that. Yeah, I had a package that was delivered to my house that actually belonged to one of my neighbors. The neighbor found out about it and was just trying to confirm that he wasn't being a porch pirate and stealing packages from me, and was just actually recovering the packages that he actually was entitled to receive. I imagine, I would say, a lot of packages are going to be like that, particularly just this year, but in general, they hire temporary package deliveries for the, like, Christmas season, and those employees tend to be very not concerned with doing it right. Honestly, I imagine they're just under a ton of stress and pressure too. Whereas there is, I think, room for, if you could or were forced to maintain a higher number of employees. And I don't want to get into an economics rant, but there are definitely some businesses that the law should, the government should say, you need to maintain a certain number of employees, period. Like a certain number of delivery men. You need to quit outsourcing or automating things, because it's the way you do it is always to just save yourself a buck, and it makes your service worse. There's no real punishment in the United States for giving worse service or making a worse experience for the end user. And arguably, if you were to look at the past 100 years of businesses and satisfaction with the service you're getting, and the type of service you would be getting from any kind of business, it has not gotten better by any means, and there should have been a mechanism to make it better. People were treated, well, let me be fair, white rich people in particular were treated way better, or even white poor people were treated way better in the old days compared to now, where you go to just a general grocery store where you could run that comparison side by side. A general store, grocery store 100 years ago, the owner of the store would know your name. He would be on the floor. He would be someone you could talk to, and he would address any of your issues. They would take pride in their products. They would not try and scam you or sell you garbage. Particularly in general stores where it's not a fly-by-night business, where the general store could just set up a new tent somewhere else in the next city. Their word was their bond, and maybe this is looking through the eyes of nostalgia, that any of this is possibly not actually true. But nowadays, you go to a grocery store, it's a mega market, it's a Walmart, it's employed by people that don't care. If there is a manager even at the place, they're hiding in an office somewhere. That they don't know your name, they don't care your name. They're more than willing to sell you garbage products. Their word is not their bond by any means, and they don't have to stand behind the quality of their products because you don't have any other option. Yeah. But yeah. If there was a requirement to maintain a certain number of employees, you might take that idea, like going back to if you owned an acre of land. An acre of land is designed specifically to be enough land that one man can maintain in a month, I believe. So for every acre of land, if you were required to employ one farmer, one person to maintain that land, and you couldn't let the fields go wild or unkempt or unkept. That would have been the beginning of an interesting system. Now, I am conveniently ignoring the idea that if this system had been set up when the United States had been set up, it would have been for every acre of land you owned, you're required to maintain one slave. But
about right.
it conveniently ignoring that,
Bow your head and prepare for
if
the end.
somebody owned
Thanks to
1,000 acres today and they were required to still maintain 1,000 employees, well, that would be really well maintained, really well tamed 1,000 acres, wouldn't it? And honestly, those employees probably would not be working anywhere as much as your average farmer is these days. As far as like picking berries and things like that, if you're just growing corn and using machines, that's a relatively easy farming experience.
The uncharted desert awaits.
Right. This. And then. Okay. Thought I was going to have enough to do this, but not. Okay, let's do this.
What did I want gold again?
And then evolve this.
prepare yourself.
My dreams are what kept. I want to get it all back.
I hope you are all watching.
Yeah. I'm not sure I can think of any scenario where the idea of seasonal work or temporary work makes sense. If everything was more like kind of a France where there was union work, unions controlling more things, you'd probably be an employee or in a job pool getting trained and getting some small amount of pay in a job pool when seasonal work was not necessary. So for like package delivery people, maybe they instead of laying off and hiring new package delivery people every season, they would instead have you learning more skills to work in other positions at UPS or other places, or just getting education in general. Like it would make a lot of sense to say this this person is not needed to actually do any physical labor at the moment, so we're sending them to school to gain more skills to be a manager or to be something else. Let's see. Clash, summon a skeleton.
Stand down.
Moving on, a data mine. We were talking about this. Smash Brothers, Wave Race, and more looks set for the Nintendo 64's library. A data mine suggests that more than 20 further unannounced Nintendo 64 games are announced or planned, which includes Banjo-Kazooie, Paper Mario, Pokemon Snap, Majora's Mask, Kirby 64, Mario Golf, F-Zero X. I guess Nintendo does own F-Zero, so I think that's true.
Let's speed things up.
Yeah. So yeah, but then they could have just also put a list of games in that data mine to be data mined. Let's see, how can we do this? If we did this, then we would do like 5 damage. I think you want to do this. And then this.
Death throes, music to my ears.
And then evolve here.
You see, I'm only getting stronger.
A chorus of what
Kill
excitement.
that. Play that.
Death throes, music to my ears.
Now all of a sudden I have like 10, which lets me play this.
What did I want gold again?
I'll say my neighbor, who I've never met before, was very accommodating, frankly. Clearly concerned about it. He had the packages, he handed me the packages back to look at. He pulled out his wallet, he showed me his driver's license, his name, his address. Like, apparently he had either done this before or was just very concerned about it. When in reality, I would have been fine. I would have been like, fine, take him. I don't care. The fact that my doorbell is a fancy video doorbell in the first place took his picture as soon as he approached. So, and honestly, I have security systems, so I would have been able to hunt him down very easily. Had he stolen the packages, if that was even going to be an issue. I'm having bigger issues with people ripping me off and robbing me in many other ways to worry about a couple of packages.
Lots of bullets, but make it fashion.
I'm coming for you.
I'm so close.
Moving on, Activision claims the Call of Duty Vanguard will reduce the file size by up to 50%. New texture streaming tech is promised. I'm sure that's interesting to people who would play Call of Duty, who are probably fed up with the massive sizes of games like Call of Duty. Let's see. Are we making progress here? Slowly but surely. It's, I think, important to mention, though, that Activision and Call of Duty is an Activision title, where Activision Blizzard is the same company, and the real parent company, but BlizzCon never really focused around Call of Duty. So I wouldn't be surprised if they did try to bring back something like BlizzCon. It doesn't become more heavily focused around a Activision titles, Call of Duty titles. Video Game Chronicle also says the Sony State of Play live stream, I think it potentially is happening. Nope, it's happening in a couple hours. The presentation will focus on third-party games for the PS5 and PS4, which probably isn't much. Yeah, we need to burn through some games, so we have one called Nino Maze Lo-Fi, 59 cents, English allegedly full audio, that's easy no. Here we have a game called Wave Player, which looks like it's just a player versus player platforming game. Like, this is the kind of game that would be like a very good arcade game in the early 80s, but there has been basically nothing that would convince people to play this kind of game nowadays. And it's way too short, way too simplistic. It's free, English only, so I guess the price is right. It does seem like it's also a student project. That being said, it doesn't look particularly interesting as a student project, so I'm just gonna have to leave it there. Here we have a game called Mellow,
Where's
where
Adrian?
you're playing as a marshmallow. I think I've seen a game like this before. Looks like it's a frustration platformer with pretty bad animation. It's free, English only. It too is a student project. Note to that. Then we have a game called Creepy Mahjong, which is just Mahjong Solitaire in the shapes of Halloween things, which I think there's a fairly large disconnect there between
Kinda haunted.
people and
No,
Asians who
literally.
would play Mahjong and Halloween, which is a very Western tradition, and that's not to say that it hasn't become fairly popular to dress up and celebrate Halloween in like the Akihabara area in Japan, but you're not
Can I haunt you too?
what you see as far as Halloween imagery is not in line with like the hopping vampires of China or the slit mouth woman or any Junji Ito horror things, or like just nothing that would be a Asian horror element is depicted for Halloween. Halloween's much more a centering around Central European mythos and not even Eastern European like Baba Yaga. It's just Dracula, Frankenstein, the Mummy, werewolf, Wolfman, things like that. The Universal Studios monsters in the tradition there. Sam Hain and pumpkins and bats.
Bestow
Um,
a kiss.
More tools, more.
This would be probably the year too where you start to see a decent number of people dressed as bats for their Halloween costumes. Bats with COVID-19.
Lots of bones, but make it fashion. Bone to beef.
I would also say
So much for that axe.
that Westerners in general
Oh,
tend to segregate the
medicine.
spooky and the scary stuff to October and Halloween times, whereas Asians are more than willing to tell you a horror story any time of the year. If anything,
have summoned the blade of purgation here.
I think a lot of Westerners are too afraid of
Delightful.
fiction, whereas I don't think there's that many Asians that would be afraid of hearing a spooky story.
Evil spirit.
I'm coming for you.
Okay, what can we do? I guess we have to do this.
Prepare yourself.
About time we made this.
Open
I'll
wide.
see you in purgatory.
What do we have here?
All they would have to do is
Detestable.
1 damage to kill 4 of these guys and 2 damage to kill the rest. So yeah. Next we have a game called Necroball, which looks like it is an attempt at a football simulator, but
Check out my fancy
I guess it's not even football. It's something closer to air hockey or soccer, I would say. $7.19, English only. That's an easy note too. It just doesn't look good.
You have summoned
Here we have a
the
game
blade
called
of purgation
Flashlight, which
here.
looks like nothing of interest. $10 even, English only. $10 while on sale is actually
Why would the
Oddly
dead need
expensive.
a living wage?
okay. If we evolve here, can't do anything, so we might as well just
You
evolve
see?
here.
I'm only getting stronger. I've struck it. Get in
Hit
there.
that,
I'll see you
Open
in
wide.
purgatory.
hit that.
I have all the work to do.
Good enough.
Let's see. Next, we have a game called Physical Tetris, which looks like nothing of interest.
One stands to
Same
accept
gimmick we've seen
another.
multiple times. 84 cents, English and Chinese.
Cave in.
Here we have Remy Raccoon and the Lost Temple, which looks like garbage. $2.54, English only.
Only one
There's
stands to
several of
accept
these puzzle
another.
games. Puzzle Art Rodents, $1.19, allegedly full audio in every language on Steam. We also have Puzzle Art Reptiles, which is a no. Puzzle Art Primates, they're flooding Steam. Puzzle Art Predators. Puzzle Art Horses. Puzzle Art Artiodactyls. Don't even know what that is. Two here.
Kinda haunted.
Two here.
Kinda haunted. No, literally.
Let's see. Here we have a game called Break Robots VR, which, yeah, I don't think there's anything there that interests me. $26.99, fairly expensive even for a VR game. English, Chinese, Japanese, and Korean. Here we have Captain Jackson, which is obviously nothing. $1.99, English, allegedly full audio, I doubt it. I did see a tip about installing audio ducking as a feature, and yeah, that is a thought. I could make the audio get quieter when I start talking. It would have the audio of the video games I'm playing, particularly Shadowverse in this case. That's the only one I'd actually implement it on. The background music of Shadowverse, I could have it get quieter when I start talking. It probably would be fairly delayed though, so that'd be a little weird. It's probably way better just to have the audio balanced, and if the audio is not balanced, they just need feedback to potentially attempt to correct that. But yeah. Audio ducking makes a lot more sense if you're playing like a Twitch streamer and you're barely saying anything for several minutes, but if I'm not saying anything for a couple of minutes, it's because I'm getting distracted, and that's not something that I want to encourage. That's something I want to incredibly discourage.
Do not seek what is not there.
So accounting for something that I don't want to have happen is kind of a waste of energy. Plus, it's a waste of CPU power.
A precious life deserves a precious death. I'm the most fabulous.
Let's see. Gamatsu says Utawarerumono is, I guess, the right way to pronounce that. Has a 20th anniversary live stream set for November 24th. I know this game. I feel like it's a visual novel series. Must be a fairly long running if it's a 20th anniversary. Unless I'm just completely misremembering.
For the world I love, I'll become a beast. Thy swordsmanship.
I'm quickly running out of water here to drink. Let's see. Gamatsu says Dragon Quest X offline, information tidbits, how it links with Dragon Quest Online, and more. You can check out that article if you're interested. I'm not that interested. We already talked about Konami publishing the shoot 'em up Saigini All Guns Blazing. Konami becoming a publisher definitely sounds like a silly idea, though. We already talked about Returnal adding suspend cycles and photo modes. Photo mode in particular seems like something that should have been in the game day one. Let's see. Here we have a game on Steam called Campground Owner, which looks like it's a city builder using camping equipment, which doesn't make a lot of sense. $2.39 English only. Yeah, and if you really were gonna do like an RV park, you would do more than just kind of generally map out an area and say, well, all right, you can put up your tent anywhere in this area. Here we have a game called Ghost of War's Battle Royale World War II shooting game, which clearly is a low effort name. Says it supports a bunch of languages, says it's free to play. it has in-app purchases. It doesn't directly just immediately look like an asset flip game, even though that's what it is. Like, there's a little bit more polish there, enough to potentially confuse some people. Here we have a game that is all in Asian characters, and it's just anime characters with slide puzzles. It's 99 cents, Chinese only. We can obviously have to say no to that. Here we have Lawnmower Game Space Fight, which obviously is just a joke game. $1.19, English only. Like, where does Valve act? I suppose they probably don't act at all.
Are you in need of medicine?
As far as their sales. Like, if the Halloween sale is happening tomorrow, are all of these games being allowed on Steam today to get them out of the way? Or are they being allowed on Steam so that they can try and convince people to actually actually buy them when people go to the storefronts? Questionable, I suppose, is we'll have to look at the discounts certainly to see if there's anything worth really buying.
You look kinda haunted. No, literally.
Yeah, I could see
Open wide.
only one of those 3 sales being worth buying anything. Honestly, there may not even be that much on sale. It's still very hard to justify buying any new games when I still have plenty of games to play in my backlog, and really just maintaining the backlog more than anything.
Did I want gold again?
Oh, are you in need of medicine?
Aren't you popular?
Moving on, we have a game on Steam called Hero of the Day, which just looks like a platformer of no interest. $1.19, English only. Here we have Light of the Athena, which looks like a shoot 'em up game. Doesn't look terrible, and that's widescreen, so there's something to applaud there. Again, shoot 'em up games are kind of like arcade games, maybe not from the 80s, closer to the 90s, but they never really had a transition to consoles that much, and they never gained much more of a fandom. And so I just don't think there's a lot of people that would want to play these types of games. At the core of it, a side-scrolling shooter or a shoot 'em up that shoots upward are games that kind of are going to ask you to play the game perfectly. And if you don't play the game perfectly, then you run into the danger of just struggling to.
Prepare yourself.
My dreams are what kept me alive.
What? Oh, he had already attacked. Darn it. Yeah. Shoot 'em ups are more score based. They ask you to play the game perfectly to win, and they often are impossible to win at, or close to impossible to win at. Moving on, we have a game called A Frustrating Platformer, which is more than enough to make me never want to play it. $1.59, English only. Yeah, for as much as I put games on the follow list, there's the shopping or pre-shopping using a follow list and a wish list has severely helped me not purchase bad games. As silly as it might be, the act of shopping and browsing and just window shopping in a digital format is I feel very helpful versus just immediately being uninformed or buying things on a whim. And I think that's probably a skill that some people could never learn, and some people just don't learn, and then whenever they actually go to a shop or see something on sale, they just immediately purchase things.
Questioning God's design is meaningless.
Following slickdeals.net, for instance, is kind of a great example of getting over time a feel of what is available for purchase and what isn't, and what is good deal and what isn't, and not getting told, well, something is 10% off and that's a good deal, when in reality it's been marked up, so that 10% discount is actually a price increase.
Does this outfit make me look too old?
10% off something that was marked up
You see?
300 times, so it's not a discount.
How could you not understand?
Moving on, we have Pride and Prejudice Blood Ties, which is a Telltale Games Limited, not to be
Nothing on my night.
confused with Tale, T-A-L-E-T-E-L games. The hidden object game. $10.99 English, allegedly full audio.
Let us conclude.
That is a much better price for a hidden object game than you usually see on Steam, though. $10, way better than the $12 or $14 you often see. Here we have a game called East Trapper, which looks like nothing. 99 cents English only. Is this one gonna concede? Here we have a game called Marmoset, which looks like a platformer. It's a little zoomed out and a little pixely, but feels like somebody is actually trying to do something here. Enough so that I can't just immediately dismiss it. $3.19 English, Portuguese, Brazil. I always kind of feel like while there is a lot of garbage that comes from Brazil or supports Portuguese Brazilian language, there does definitely feel like there are some people that are there really trying to give it a go and make
See how nice it is
good
when you
products. Okay.
No!
So yeah, that game goes on the follow list. Let's see. Gamatsu says Ko Shibusawa and Team Ninja are developing a Romance of the Three Kingdoms action game. The developers of Ninja Gaiden and Nioh, which that's not much of an announcement, but okay. What ironically will potentially happen here is you may have a well-seasoned collection of programmers and animators and just video game makers in general make a Romance of the Three Kingdoms video game that puts all the Japanese versions of Romance of the Three Kingdoms video games to shame. That being said, it may be too Japanese, or it may just be slightly based on Romance of the Three Kingdoms, or it may just get like not allowed in Japan, in China anyways, so Chinese people may never see it. I don't know if Chinese are even supposed to be the main market, but you would kind of assume that they would be the target audience.
To my ears.
You look kinda haunted. No, literally.
Yeah.
A chorus of dying screams. What excitement!
A magnificent battle. Enough with the pretenses.
Yep. There is a there is a game, an anime called, I believe, Iki Tosen, that is loosely based on the Romance of the Three Kingdoms. series, and it came out a long time ago.
One blessing?
But
You
it's
poor thing.
basically just lewd anime girls showing off cleavage and skin, and so it is just so loosely based off of it that it barely even deserves to be mentioned as being loosely based on the Romance of the Three Kingdoms. And Dragon Ball, the original Dragon Ball that led to Dragon Ball Z and all the others spin-offs, was based on the Chinese tale of the Monkey King, but it's so loosely based on it, it doesn't really matter.
Bow before dark
Moving on,
dragoon.
Gamatsu says
Roar
Pokemon
the
Legends,
skies.
Arceus
Is
trailers,
fighting
details, and
fair
artwork.
all you know?
If you're hyping yourself up for the next Pokemon game, then check this out. I don't think I particularly care about the next Pokemon game. A Quiet Place is a single-player story-driven horror adventure game, has been announced. I assume this is based off of the movie A Quiet Place, and there was a sequel, A Quiet Place 2, which I think was lesser received. It's from Saber Interactive, Illogic, and Epitome, 3 companies that I don't really think I've heard too much about any recently, if at all. I may have never heard anything about any of them. I don't know how I did it, but I managed to scratch my wrist. Did I do that on my metal mouse pad? I don't think so. That's pretty smooth edge. Let's see. Gamatsu says Hatsune Miku Colorful Stage launches December 7th in the West. But this is an iOS Android game, rhythm game. They've added several other characters with Hatsune Miku instead of just being Hatsune Miku, and some of these are other Vocaloid characters. I don't think they're all Vocaloid characters though. If they are, I've just not been paying attention as far as Vocaloid. I don't think it was this game, but there was a rhythm game like this that had severely reduced like boob jiggle and physics in it in the Japanese version, and yeah, that seems to the target audience of people who want to see that kind of content, it seems like a bit of a betrayal. What we've seen in the past is that the boob jiggle was present in the Japanese version and then conveniently reduced or removed in the Western version. Now it seems like in that one instance they may just be completely removing it. And at a certain point it is just unrealistic. If you want to talk about depicting females unrealistically, too much boob jiggle certainly is unrealistic, but none at all is also unrealistic, so you kind of need to find a middle ground. I should have traded that one and got rid of that one.
Worship the primal flame.
Twig won't do a thing.
Let's see, here we have a game on Steam called Defend the Rook, which looks like it's a positional placement kind of puzzle game. From the looks of it, it's kind of visually polished, so I can't immediately dismiss it, I don't think. 1619, English full audio, several other languages. I'd have to think about this, certainly. Think long and hard as to whether I think there really is something here I want to play. It's single player, so There may not be that many puzzles or that much game to actually play. Or it could be like Disgaea and it just gets really slow and repetitive and boring very fast. That is also a possibility.
Did someone see me?
Let's go ahead and just
There's a
buff
lot
this
more
up, I
where that
guess.
came from. You're on. Stop.
I'll protect
Let's
you
see,
with
next
everything
we have a
I've
game
got.
that's all Asian characters. Says it's a top-down shooter. Doesn't look particularly interesting.
Judgment is a
Thumbnail
process.
looks interesting. Game looks boring. $1.79 Chinese only. Here we have a game called Prognostic, which looks like a horror game.
The real battle begins.
And you run into this problem once again of horror asset flip games looking so good you can't even tell when one
Back for
isn't.
round 2.
So I kind of have to put this on the follow list. It's early access. There's no good reason for that. English, Chinese, Russian, $5.24. There's almost a different standard that I'm going to have to start holding these kinds of games to, in an insistence of potentially seeing somebody review or play these games, those types of games, before I'd even give it a consideration. And frankly, there's more than enough horror games out there already, so it's kind of hard to justify playing yet another horror game particularly if it's questionable. Here we have a game called Franchise Hockey Manager 8, which looks like nothing I'd want to play. Just a simulation game. $35.99 English only, very expensive. Here we have Toho Multi-Scroll Shooting 2, and another interesting thumbnail here. Barely wearing a shirt at all. But the actual images of the game look pretty bad. Look more like an asset flip, look more like a garbage game than the other Toho games we've seen. Or games that have had Toho in the name. One of these days I'm going to find out Toho means something very generic and isn't really really connected to anything.
Scorch you as black as these skies.
Shut up and burn!
There we go. Yeah, let's just end the turn there. That's a pretty good place to end it. Here we have Kathy Rain Director's Cut, which is funny because I think Kathy Rain was on my wish list.
The time for
Or maybe I've already bought it. Let's see. I own Kathy Rain and potentially have never played it.
Forget it. I'm done.
Oops. So now, and this is the worst case scenario with having a back order. Extended story, additional puzzles, new areas to explore. I guess it would cost me $6.74 to get around to upgrading it. What's funny is this is on my following list, but I suspect I guess I'll just leave it on the following list. I don't even know how it's on my following list actually. What happened there? Yeah, I've never played Kathy Rain, so it's hard to justify making a special effort around that. 3 damage to the enemy leader. Let's see, this developer also has a game called Whispers of Machines, which is on the wish list.
Nothing yet.
So that it's not like they're flooding Steam or anything. Kathy Rain came out in 2016. if I played it now and then
You were done
a
for.
year later played the director's cut, that'd be an interesting coverage. I don't know, that'd be a lot of coverage for kind of a lesser known game, though. I do need to play a point and click adventure game, but I still have plenty of better known ones. Right. You do this,
No!
and then you do this,
I'll hit the vanguard.
and
Ready to witness my true strength? I've been keeping this in reserve. I'll blast my way through.
kill that.
I mustn't give in.
So unless he can banish this character, I'll win. Next we have Jewel Match 3 Twilight 3 Collector's Edition, which is nothing. $8.49. Here we have a game called Hermitage Strange Case Files, which looks like it is a half visual novel, half detective game, so it's probably not too different from what you would call a Danganronpa game.
If they don't kill you first.
Yeah, I think there's definitely some similarities, that seems there. $16.99, English only, oddly though. Kind of a different art style. Definitely doesn't feel like it's going for that moe art style, although it kind of still feels fairly Japanese. But I suspect it may not be made by a Japanese developer. Let's put that on the follow list. Once again, I have somehow magically lost. I mean, it is getting really ridiculous how you're just losing on one turn losses when you've worn down the player. Which does imply that if I was to just boost the cards in my deck and build a slightly better deck, I could probably win more often, but
Ruler of the skies. You must die.
But yeah, it doesn't feel like you're just getting wild and crazy. Let's flip a coin, and if it's heads, you win. If it's tails, you lose. There aren't really cards like that in Shadowverse. Instead, it seems like the strategy is just to have 3 or 4 cards in your hand that can win in 1 or 2 turns. Let's see. Gamatsu says Monster Crown for the PS4 and Xbox One has been delayed to an unannounced date. This is, I think, a Pokemon clone from the looks of it. The Steam version is still either out or scheduled to be out. I guess it's out. Yeah, the Steam version is here. It looks like a Pokemon game. It is mostly positive. It's on the follow list. $19.99, whole bunch of languages, yep. And since I have come back to see it, yeah, it deserves a wishlist upgrade. I guess the real question you'd want to ask here is just how many monsters there are. Breed and fuse 200 base model monsters to create your new species. That doesn't sound too bad. 200 is more than the 150 in the original Pokemon game.
If I turned tail and ran, there wouldn't be a dragon.
I think it was 150 in total between red and blue. Maybe it was 300 between red and blue. Either way, that's still fairly a fair number of characters. Honestly, there was probably too many characters to start off with in Pokemon, and they've just had to consistently add more characters.
Ready to sail?
And often a good percentage of the characters that are getting added are not interesting characters or good characters.
You're on.
Let's see. Moving on, Gamatsu has Cyanide and Happiness, Freak Apocalypse Episode 1. Hall Pass to Hell is now available for PS4 and Xbox. This is the second game in the past 4 or 5 years starring Cyanide and Happiness, and they really want to make that work as a game series. But I don't know if it really would. The previous game was pretty poorly received. This is more of a traditional point and click game, and it came out on Steam apparently on March 11th. And yeah, 50% positive here overall. And let's see, Skeleton Crew Studios. No. Explosum. Serenity Forge apparently published Doki Doki Panic. Did they publish the previous Cyanide and Happiness game? Not by the looks of it. I wonder if the previous game was completely removed, or if this is the previous game and it just looks different to me for some reason. The problem with Cyanide and Happiness in general, let's play, is it is a comic series that does like one panel a day at most. It's not something that makes sense in bulk. So when you have to try and make a point and click world around that idea, that just doesn't, I think, make sense.
You are done for.
Yeah, this is a different game than the other one, because the other one was about the apocalypse happening. Yeah, it's just like visual gags and jokes, and yeah. If anything, I would say Cyanide and Happiness is a much shorter, less thought out, more simplistic. What is South Park equivalent? Whereas South Park has evolved and run its course to become a much more complicated storyline than what it originally was.
Send out an SOS! No, thank you. You're on!
I don't know why I did that, but we'll do it that way, whatever.
I'll be back for round 2.
Moving on, Undungeon for Xbox One and PC launches November 18th. I have to actually read the headline before scrolling down. I still feel like at some point I need to tweak the smooth scrolling to be a bit smoother, too. Looks like a top-down hack and slash game that's kind of like a looks kind of like a Diablo inspired experience with more action. There might be something to that. The idea of getting away from a dungeon, if you really are going to do that around the phrase undungeon, that too could make some sense.
Take your victory.
I'm gonna lose here, obviously. Here we have a game on Steam called Polyboost, which looks like just nothing. $1.59, English only. Here we have a game called Arcade, which is way too much neon colors. I don't know why people think this color palette ever works. Maybe it's just my eyes, but I hate the pink and blue neon color palette terribly. I don't hate pink, I don't hate blue, but if you get them both neon in the same room, I hate that combination. This is $17.99, English, allegedly full audio. Here we have a game called At Eve's Wake, which looks like a more Western visual novel, which honestly I'm not sure if you really have a lot to say. An old lady who's dead and they're having a wake for it that is very far away from your standard visual novel themes and settings, certainly. But feels like it very well could just be preachy dialogue. Or it could be a murder mystery. This is at least the second game today where we've seen something inspired by Lovecraft's work. $22.49 English only. I'll put it on the fall list and see, but I feel like there very well may have just been one company that decided to try and sell more Lovecraftian things. There's lots of things that try to use Lovecraft as a design, as a descriptor, and it rarely feels like it's actually Lovecraftian as far as I understand Lovecraft, which is very little actually. Marvel's Guardians of the Galaxy from Square Enix and Eidos Montreal. Yep. Now finally knowing that it is effectively a Mass Effect game, I know what you're actually going to do. I think there is also, I've heard, a desire to kind of rush through it to unlock some different costumes because the original costumes kind of suck. I don't know if that's really a big deal. I heard the music soundtrack's really good, which it kind of needs to be. There is a concern that I certainly would have here as far as just how long would you actually have to play this? Because if this is like Mass Effect 1 and you're to play the entire story, you're being required to play for like 200 hours. That's a little too much. If it's somewhere between 30 to 60 hours, that's much more understandable. That being said, people are liking it, so I can't really say no to it. It's $59.99, just kind of what is the standard price, plus digital deluxe upgrade, which I'd like to know what that is. It says it has full audio in English, French, Italian, German, and Spanish, Japanese, Polish, Portuguese, Brazil, Russian, and Spanish Latin America, which in this case, with a Marvel license, I would expect that's actually true. Single player only, third-party DRM of Denuvo and third-party EULA. Let's see what the digital deluxe upgrade gets you. The Sun Lord outfit for Star-Lord, early unlock. City Lord for Star-Lord, early unlock. Original video game soundtrack and the Art of the Game mini book. So, I suppose then it being labeled as an early unlock probably means that you can get the outfits without buying the DLC in the deluxe edition. And even if you did have to buy it, you're just buying the outfits, pretty much, and nothing else of interest. With the very positive rating, this has to go on the wish list. This is once again another one of those examples where it barely gets any promotion the week before a game comes out. I didn't know it was coming out today as a game, and you would expect there to be more people talking about and promoting it right now, or streaming it and playing it, and doesn't seem like that's really the case.
We'll return light to the canal.
Maybe in the next couple days we'll start to see some people streaming it, but I also wouldn't be surprised if people don't choose to do that, or they get content ID'd claimed, and that's why they're not covering it. Which that could always be the reason why people aren't covering a game, and you just kind of would never know. You're also kind of in a weird position playing a Guardians of the Galaxy themed game when there's probably another third Guardians of the Galaxy movie in the works, and then that's probably it for the Marvel movies, and it's probably severely delayed too, so even if you start playing now, you have a decent chance you won't be able to see a Guardians of the Galaxy movie to make you feel like there's a tie-in there for a year or longer.
Never back down.
So yeah, if Disney is going to try and have games that feel like they're kind of tied into the Marvel Cinematic Universe, I don't think they really care much about the comic book universe. They're going to have to work a lot harder to synchronize things. At a certain point, Disney is probably going to have to pay some people to just make games 10 years before the movie is planned, or sit on a game until the next sequel to a movie is ready to release. And Disney is probably the only company that's rich enough to have a video game company not release a game for 6 extra months. Speaking of Disney being rich or not being rich, depending on how you want to look at it, Disney, from what I saw on Reddit, just raised the price of a ticket from like $45 for what I would assume would be an adult ticket to Disney World to $165. Just like a massive increase in price. Which, yeah, that's definitely a shocking potential bit of news. I'm gonna lose here because, well, maybe not, because this one has a ward. It may be the only thing that saves me for one turn. Here we have a game on Steam called Grotto, which looks like a very differently animated visual and adventure kind of visual novel from the looks of it. I'm not sure there's actually any other gameplay elements. Very differently animated though. Like, this looks nothing like a visual novel, whereas it may still really be just that. 1169 English full audio. I kind of believe them, so I'm gonna put that on the follow list. Here we have a game called Help Me, which this feels like this animation style would kind of make sense if the game was free. It's $1.69, so I think that's a little bit too expensive. It says it supports a lot of languages and has a third-party EULA. Yeah, 7 to 10 minutes to beat. Yeah, this is too low effort. Frankly, if you were going to have this art style in the game, it would have to be a flashback type art style where everything looks different when a character is telling you a story or flashing back, and then there would have to be a hyper contrasting realistic art style to balance that out. But that's not what this is. This is just a low effort game. Here we have a game called Forgive Me Father. This too is inspired by H.P. Lovecraft. Like, at a certain point, they're going to get to the point where Halloween just means Lovecraftian to people if they don't stop with the oversaturation of Lovecraft stuff. It has a neat, unique art style, this game. It looks like it's a first-person shooter. Kind of comic book art style while you're running around and shooting.
This one's for my
Early
family.
access, single player, 1274 English only. Yeah, I'll put it on the fall list. It would make a lot more sense to play something like this once it's out of early access, at least, than it would be to go back and try and play something like Quake or even Doom. Even though those are more relevant games, this is more modern. Yeah, we have a game on Steam called Moonglow Bay, which looks very pixely and doesn't look like it's much of anything. It's like a fishing voxel based game from the looks of it. Yep. You can see it's already mixed reviewed. I would like to see a fishing game. I'm not sure I want to see a voxel pixely fishing game though. I'd rather see a flat cartoony animation style for fishing. There was a mobile game around fishing, but it was effectively a clicker game more than anything. And I played it for a brief time until I finally got bored of it and stopped playing it.
What did I want gold again?
Let's see. Here we have a game on Steam called Bad in Theater, which this is kind of like the rough art style, but it's got more color. So it's multiple ending visual novel where you're, I think, intentionally trying to get bad endings. $8.99, whole bunch of languages. There might be something to this, but maybe not. See, it's rated very positively. I'm gonna leave it on the fall list, even though it already has 30 reviews. I guess there's no reason to do that. Actually, let's just put it on the wish list. It meets the requirements. Just stay true to our rules. I'm dangerously sometimes get close to not following my own established system as much as I do follow the established system. Here we have a game called Holiday Cheer 3, which is just a match 3 game. $12.74 is way too expensive, English only. Here we have a game called Play Outside Simulator, which just looks like an asset flip garbage game. $1.79, allegedly full English audio. Here we have a game called Habitat, which looks like garbage. MS Paint level graphics. $4.99, English full audio says. I doubt. Rush, Necromancy, DL2, Leader. Right. If we do this now, get rid of that.
Lots of bones, but make it
I
fashion.
want to get
Get
it
rid
all
of
back.
that.
This is my last job.
Hit that.
I bestow upon you my lightning.
Here we have a game called Prince of Quinn, which looks like it's probably a Chinese Diablo clone, but doesn't look terrible. It looks really old though. If this had come out the same year as Diablo, that would make a lot more sense. And arguably, I don't really want to play something that's a Diablo clone that is so directly looking like Diablo 1. I would want to play something much closer to Torchlight. This is probably also a game that doesn't have controller support, really. $7.99, English, allegedly full audio. I guess I'll give it a chance and see if people review it, but I doubt people will. Here we have a game called The Wrath of Erlich, which looks a little bit more modern, but looks also very asset flippy, as probably a Diablo clone also. $5.99, English only. Here we have a game that's all Asian characters. It doesn't look particularly great. It's a visual novel of some sort with some kind of turn-based strategy element. Maybe it's more turn-based than visual novel-y. $5.59, Korean only though, so can't do anything about that. I would say the art style's a little rough, particularly even for a Korean game. Seems a little rough. Alright. Let's see. If I do this one and then this one, that should work.
Did I want gold again?
Hey, yeah, we've been going 3 hours. I didn't even realize we've been going that long. Man, we haven't even covered all the news. Yep. That is kind of just blacked out there and forgot about an hour or two. I guess that means I'm moving at the right pace. So, Gamatsu says, Wonder Stars teaser trailer screenshots, 90-second anime-inspired RPG for the Switch and PC. There's quite a lot going on here. Very thick legs on this character. You've got pink-haired girl, yeah, I guess, because of boobs, and then Wolfman, and then twin-tail-haired black lady with glasses, and then you have either a boy or a girl in here, I'm not even sure. And then what feels almost like a completely different art style over here with what I assume is the bad guy in his menagerie of enemies. And then they both, this guy and this guy, seem to have some kind of magical power. I kind of think this is a girl, but I'm not sure. Yeah, this just does kind of feel like it's all over the place. And I don't know if this is supposed to be kind of like a Paper Mario game at its core, with just some weirder comedic Japanese mentality, or what. Let's see. Reanimate 6. Can't do that yet.
Uncharted desert awaits. What do we have here?
This.
You're a fiery one.
Reanimate 6. Gain. Should I just do this? No, I'm just gonna end a turn here. See what this teaser trailer looks like. Yeah, kind of 90s anime art style. I get what they're saying there. Make your own attacks. I don't really care much about that. Befriend your rivals. Yeah, I'm not 100% certain on as far as Wonder Stars, but there might be something there. Destroy one and draw 2 cards. This.
Ladies and gentle ghosts, follow me. Oh, quit
Then
flying
hit
around
this.
everywhere. Yeah, I love this job. Of course I do.
And then do this. Get rid of that.
You're a fiery one.
We already talked about this. Pikmin Bloom is now available in Singapore and Australia. I guess that is slightly different news. We didn't know about the availability. The composer Shoji Meguro has left Atlas and is developing an indie game to be announced on November 6th. He will continue to work on Atlas titles. I imagine, in the case of a composer though, I'm not sure you really need to work directly for Atlas. But that doesn't spell great for Atlas's lineup of Persona games and things like that. This would do 8 damage. Can we do anything that would do more damage?
Give me your stuff, Then I might let you live.
This.
The uncharted desert awaits.
This.
Oh, are you in need of medicine?
Alright. What do we want to kill? This one, I guess.
I'll be back for round 2.
Let's see. The Famitsu review scores from issue 1717 are here. Back for Blood, 32 out of 40, not particularly high. Seriously, once again, like, everybody is just playing the exact same deck, and they all have this I'm gonna win summoning this character doing massive amount of damage concept. It's really frustrating. I should have won 2 or 3 times more than I have at this point, just today. And over the lifetime of playing Shadowverse, probably 50, 60 times, I felt like victories have been stolen from me. Danganronpa Decadence got 33 out of 40, not particularly a great thing. Marvel Guardians of the Galaxy got 36 out of 40, so they very much are happy with that. Tokimiki Memorial Girls Side Fourth Heart for the Switch launched at got reviewed at 32 out of 40. Super Arcade Soccer 21 out of 40. That is absolute garbage. I've never seen such a low score for any game from Famitsu. And Super Robot Wars 30 got 33 out of 40. So Guardians of the Galaxy is the game to play, even according to the Japanese audience, Japanese reviewers. Let's see. Ashwalker's A Survival Journey is coming to the Switch in Q1 of 2022, according to Gamatsu. This is a game I believe we had seen the announcement for, but not sure we've seen anything else from it. And yeah, doesn't seem like they're really showing us that much even now. Let's see, here we have a game called Surviving the Aftermath, launching November 16th. Which, yeah. Does this trailer actually show us anything? Not really. Showing us live action footage. Actual game seems to have basically nothing they're willing to show, so there's probably not much of a game. It's currently in early access on Xbox One and PC. You would think for a game in early access they'd have actual visuals of the game to show.
There's no one else I'd rather lose to.
Gamatsu says a top lane shoot 'em up collection, Hiso Same has been announced. Same has been announced for the PS4 and Switch. Which, okay. This looks to be just like a shoot 'em up game of older shoot 'em up games. I honestly think I played these games in the past. They look somewhat familiar. But yeah. That doesn't mean that I should have played them then, and that doesn't mean that they're worth playing now by any means. Yeah, I suppose, because I could just burn through bad games fairly quickly today, I was able to succeed in getting all the news gone quicker. Or getting all the games that came out on Steam out quicker. Or maybe they just released less games. Like, once again, here's a game that's just garbage, not worth mentioning anything else. It's $1.99, English only. Looks like it's probably a tapper game. where you're just tapping on a rhythm.
Surpass my trial.
Here we have a
Prove to
game
me
called
your worth.
Insomnius, which looks just like a low-effort horror game, suffering from some dark screenshot syndrome. There's a lot of text here in this trailer. Yeah. $4.24 English, allegedly full audio. That's obviously no. Here we have Shadow's Price for Our Sins, which is another hidden object game. This one's selling for $2.99, which is a much better price than $10. Several languages supported. Yeah. I guess if you're looking for hidden object games, there's room to find a deal. Here we have a game called Too Many Zombies, which is a top-down twin-stick shooter. $8.99 English, Korean, and Japanese. Don't see anything here of interest. Here we have a game called Die After Sunset First Dawn, which looks like it's probably a player versus player game. But maybe not. There's weird creatures that you're shooting. This might be a single player game. But then this might be a looter and shooter. Here we have another guy that decided to disconnect. I don't think this is my network, but if it's my network, then somehow I've magically figured out how to finally get some quick disconnects in Shadowverse when we've never been seeing that before. And the good news is, if we just consistently get quick disconnects, one more victory here gets this, 3 more victories gets this, and then we are in a really good position. This Die After Sunset First Dawn is labeled free to play. It seems like it's a demo. It's single player only, English, Chinese, Spain, Spanish. The actual game, though, is in early access. It's single player.
Let the duel
I
begin.
don't know if there's really a game here I want to play.
For my family.
But it kind of feels like what it is something close to the Plants vs. Zombies Garden Warfare. So if there was a game like that on Steam that didn't have all the microtransactions, that would be a game I think worth promoting and covering, just to get away from microtransactions. This was an interesting bit of news. Apple Music is now available on the PlayStation 5. You can enjoy over 90 million songs while gaming, which it's frankly a little surprising that Apple Music hasn't offered that as something in the past. Is this the beginning of Sony of California getting very cozy with Apple, and potentially Sony of California even being acquired by Apple? I mean, probably not, but it would be interesting certainly if all of a sudden Sony PlayStation consoles were Apple PlayStation consoles. All of a sudden a lot of Apple fanboys would start playing and buying Apple consoles, and the PlayStation 5 would look, I think, considerably different in its physical appearance if Apple was in charge. But yeah, there really isn't, I think, a good enough reason for Apple Music to not have been there day one for both the Xbox and the PlayStation and even the Switch. I suppose the next question to ask is Spotify on the Xbox and the PlayStation and the Switch? It's probably not on the Switch. I would almost assume no. But Spotify very possibly is built in to the Xbox and the PlayStation, and it's just been taken for granted that was a feature. Of course, they love to integrate people into these services where you stream music instead of you owning your music. There has been a distinct effort amongst the music industry to make sure neither the producers or creators of music own the music, or the people who purchase the music truly own the music, or even truly own a license to own an MP3 file or a FLAC file nowadays. And for most people, that's probably fine. Like, it's not particularly worth it to fill up hard drives with FLAC music if you only want to listen to a song once a month or so, or once a year, or just don't care about what you're listening to anyways.
Be gone.
Moving on, a company called Survios, Survios, has established a new division called 2124 Publishing. This is their first published title will be Romance Clavania Bachelor's Curse. Okay. Sounds interesting. I don't know who Survios is, though. Though. It's kind of a weird time. Well, I guess it's always a little bit of a weird time to build a new business or new division instead of acquiring something that already has been established, but you have to do it sometime if you're going to do something new from scratch. Here we have a game on Steam called Adventures of Two Foxes, which looks like garbage. 99 cents, English and Russian. Here we have a game called Exploding Babies, which looks like garbage. Looks like it's a troll joke game. One of the babies is Trump. I suppose if I looked harder, there might be some more joke characters, too. This is $9.59, English and Japanese. Here we have a game called Purgatory, which doesn't look like anything of interest, unless this just plays way different than the screenshots do. Yep. We've seen some other games like this, and I'm not sure that this kind of clicker sandbox game would make sense. There might be something to it. $2.99, English, allegedly full audio. I don't believe that, but I'll put this on the follow list. There might be something worth playing with there. Right. You do this.
Death Rose, music to my ears.
And then you can draw 3 cards and see if that works.
What excitement!
Just finish the job.
Let's see. Let's see. GameDeveloper.com is the last bit of news we have. Former Blizzard and World of Warcraft developers have established a Notorious Studios, which is absolutely the worst title to call your new studio from a company when you're leaving a company that is literally notorious. Studio will focus on creating fantasy RPGs to unite players within deep worlds. To me, it seems like they are definitely thinking that they're going to make something that is like World of Warcraft if you start World of Warcraft over again. In a lot of ways, World of Warcraft was just copying EverQuest, or EverQuest was just copying World of Warcraft, and so there have been several attempts at things like that before. So I don't know if I really believe that this is particularly a unique attempt.
Please, not
And almost certainly they are just forming the new studio to stop working for Activision Blizzard. A German developer, Good Game Studios, has opened a mobile publishing division, according to GameDeveloper.com, if that interests anybody. I guess GameDeveloper.com. They changed their pinned tweet, and they have changed their website somewhat. So, let's see. Hope that's what I wanted, was to preview that and then create that to get rid of the bottom part of that. Let's see. We already talked about suspend cycles in Eternal. Kind of a slow news day, obviously. We already talked about Nintendo Switch Online Nintendo 64 emulation.
Let the duel begin.
Let's see. We already talked about BlizzCon being paused or pretty much killed. Here's a developer insight article, narrative design, myth busting. It's not just lore, which I guess if you're interested in reading that article, that's available at GameDeveloper.com. I already talked about Niantic, Pokemon Bloom. Let's see, this is new news. Thunderful has acquired Robot Teddy and forms a new investment pillar. Swedish publisher Thunderful has acquired the game consulting agency Robot Teddy. Slightly inside baseball. We already talked about Microsoft Gaming revenue up for the first quarter for 2022. Mostly through hardware sales, I think, was what we saw, but maybe not. Maybe this is different news than what they said before. All of a sudden, they seem to be reporting good news when a couple days ago they were kind of reporting bad news. And one could cynically think that, oh, did Microsoft just pay off the writers to write puff pieces? Although, in all fairness, it's more efficient to simply pay off your accountants to manipulate the money and have something new, good to say than it is to pay off individual video game journalist sites.
Open wide.
Draw 2 cards. Here we have a game on Steam called Wasting Away, which looks like nothing. $3.59 English and Finnish. Here we have a game called Perang Laut Maritime Warfare, which does not look interesting. $11.99 English only. Where is this even? Indonesian archipelago. Yeah, I don't even know where Perang Laut is. Okay, so if we hit this,
Wait, not yet.
then play this,
Ladies and gentle ghosts, follow me.
then end the turn. Probably the best I could have done. Here we have Baking Bustle, Ashley Stream, another one of these cooking, serving, cook serve delicious clones. Although in all fairness, this looks a little bit better than some of the other ones of those types of games. I guess I could just call these time management games. $5.94, bunch of languages. That's a no. Here we have something called Super Gunfight, which looks like nothing. $14.99, English only, way too expensive. Alright.
You look
Down on
kind
the
of
field.
haunted. No, literally. Oh, quit flying around everywhere.
And
What?
I'm gonna try and reduce the health more and focus on not killing people as much. Here we have a game on Steam called Word Killer, which just looks like it's a Chinese or Japanese typing game. They're calling it a word game. Maybe you don't actually type. $2.99 English Chinese. That's obviously going to be a no. Storm, berry something.
What did I hold again?
And attack. Here we have a game called Bomb Sweeper Minefinder, which is obviously just a Minesweeper low effort game. 89 cents English, allegedly full audio. I severely doubt that. Not a terrible idea though if you're just going to try and make a Minesweeper game, but the visual polish is pretty bad. There are better Minesweeper games on Steam already. Here we have Abarimbo, Tengu, and Zombie Nation, which either this is a really old side-scrolling shooter game. I think we had even talked about this in the last stream. It's definitely a weird looking one. $10.79 English and Japanese. This is potentially one of these games that actually was fairly popular in Japan, but it still does not really have any relevancy yeah, I'm doomed.
Prepare yourself.
Yeah, it doesn't really have any relevancy in the Western world.
Is it over already? No, literally.
Here we have a game called Smoop Can't Sleep, which looks like nothing of interest. 74 cents English only. I thought about actually curating some games and not talking about some of them today, and boy would that have been a mistake. Here we have a game called Eno, which is just a horror asset flip walking simulator game. $4.99 English and Japanese. I have like 4 more games to talk about today. Here we have a game called Fire Airplane, which looks like nothing. 59 cents English only. Can we do anything to save the day?
Oh, are you in need of medicine?
I mean, we can do that. Do we have a spell?
You intend to bury me?
Here we have a game on Steam called King and Pigs Prequel, which doesn't look like much of anything. $5.99, whole bunch of languages. If this is a prequel, then obviously there would be an original game on Steam called King and Pigs. But looking at this publisher, it looks like it's all just garbage games.
On your guard. Your queen commands you.
If King and Pigs is down here, it's way old.
My loyalty is
Nope, doesn't even have to be that old. They just flooded Steam with games.
Rot, but I won't stop.
Like, I'm still scrolling down the collection of just absolute garbage. Yeah.
Does this outfit make me look too old?
The uncharted desert awaits.
Let's hit this.
You see, I'm only getting stronger. My loyalty
Your
is
queen
ironclad.
commands you.
So this is freedom.
My
Check that
armor has
one
been
out.
pierced.
Here we have a game called The Wolf, which looks like it's wolf fighting with other animals,
Your queen
but looks
commands
too
you.
much like a mobile game, really.
Nice
It's
swordsmanship.
player versus player, I think, focused. And they're also highlighting a game called Prison Simulator here. Whole bunch of languages, allegedly. Yep. Looking at Prison Simulator, I think we can pretty much assume that this is a low effort game publisher and developer. And so I'm gonna have to say no to that. And then here we have Halloween Hero, where you play as a dog, which maybe there's a game here, but I'm not sure. You play as a dog, you wander around as trick-or-treating, collecting candy. Pick up a squirrel, apparently. You collect human treats, and you give the candy. Yep, it feels like this might be a bit more of a low effort attempt at Costume Quest, getting rid of the RPG mechanics of Costume Quest. I'll put that on the fall list. $5.99 English only. Now, there might be a danger certainly here that because this is a Halloween themed game, you will just never have anybody review it. And if that truly is the way things go, then I'll just never buy it and play it, which is fine, because it's not like it looks that good of a game. Now I'm scrolling down the Twitter feeds to see what new news has even happened in the last 3 hours and 40 minutes. And I think the answer is going to be pretty much nothing. Yeah, GameDeveloper.com's new pin tweet is where updated the report an issue page to indicate to include known website issues, as they're very poorly and slowly transitioning to a new website, which that definitely should have been done better. So yeah, I could have gotten one more ranked win. That would have been appreciated. Could have definitely gotten 3 more ranked wins. That would have been appreciated too. But I can't hardly say today was a bad day. We burned through streaming, and maybe that is just in part because I took a bit of a day off yesterday and didn't try to just record anything. And honestly, I probably need consistent days off, consistent weekends off. I always push myself really hard to make footage. Not that playing video games and making YouTube footage is particularly physically exhausting, but it can be mentally draining, certainly. See, Nobunaga's Ambition Rebirth from Koei Tecmo has yet to confirm any platforms, but it seems like it's heading to the PS4, Switch, and PC according to new ratings in Taiwan. And yeah, the Tomb Raider anniversary came and went. With very little fanfare. Right, I've got one more tab to check, and then we'll cover about 10 pieces of news, and then we'll be done for today. Part of the problem is, of course, the state of play starts in, I would say about 20-25 minutes from PlayStation, so we could easily have a whole bunch of new news to talk about on Friday, which is not a terrible thought either. Let's see. the Ryan Watt, the person in charge of YouTube Gaming, head of YouTube Gaming, retweeted advice for smaller channels as a creator insider video, which I'm sure the advice there is going to be very generic and basic. Like there is an implied assumption that a smaller channel is a new channel, not that a smaller channel is a small channel because things have just been going bad. There's no thought in the heads of a YouTuber, of a YouTube employee to say, actually, no, this person probably should have succeeded more than they did, and our actions, our algorithm hurt them, and now they've been trying to grow up their channel, maybe making a few mistakes, but not being told what those mistakes are, and they've done everything they were told to do, and they're still just not succeeding. Yeah, that's kind of the advice I think a lot of channels need, including mine. And frankly, the advice there may just be give up. Moving on, Video Games Chronicle says Xbox Series X and S games are now playable on the Xbox One for some Xbox insiders, which that's kind of interesting. Forward compatibility. I guess you would call it forward compatibility, not backward compatibility, or retro compatibility. They're adding forward compatibility to some games on the Xbox One, I suppose is the best way to say it. Video Games Chronicle says Deathloop is already on sale for 40% on the PlayStation 5 and PC. Steep discount on the Game of the Year contender comes just 6 weeks after its release. I don't know why you think this is a Game of the Year contender, or why they think it is. I don't think it deserves that by any means. I know there's not a lot of games that have come out this year, but I think if I saw the list, I could think of at least 5 games better than Deathloop that deserves it. Arguably, Returnal deserves it more than Deathloop does. Video Games Chronicle says the first image of Warner's Smash Bros. Style fighting game appears to have leaked, which, let's see. This is a Mortal Kombat 11's Fatalities trailer, not actual images of this new thing. This image, it seems like they're not actually using the image, or the Video Games Chronicle is being very dishonest here by using this image. So I guess the claim is it's leaked, but nobody has seen it. Moving on, Gamatsu says Beyond Contact is coming to PS4, Xbox Series, PS5, and Xbox One. I think we had seen some of this Beyond Contact, but I'm not sure I really have. Seems like it's fairly 3D, but then you scroll down here and it looks like it could be a card game, but maybe it's not. Do they even tag it as? They say it's a survival science fiction game, according to the tags. Here's a game on Steam called Fake Racing, which doesn't look like anything I'd want to play. This art style worked well on Obra Dinn, but arguably I'm not sure they actually even worked well on Obra Dinn. $8.99 English and Russian. If the Return of Obra Dinn hadn't been in that weird art style, it probably still would have been a fine game. Here we have a game called Once More, which just looks like a visual novel. And I guess we just put it on the follow list. $14.99 English, allegedly full audio. I question that. Here we have a game called Fleshport, which is a gross word. And this does look like this is a fairly gross looking game. It is different, and different often is interesting. Although I think I'd probably reject it for just not being visually polished enough. 764, third party EULA, English only. I'll put it on the follow list though. There might be something there. And then finally we have a game called Going the Distance, which just is an asset flip game. $4.99, English, allegedly full audio. We're getting down to the point where just everything is claiming it has full audio. Very rarely are we seeing anything else. Alright, well, that's going to be it for the stream. Kind of ending early. We didn't have anybody on the chat. That kind of sucks, but that happens. And we went 3 hours and 49 minutes, and it felt like it was barely 2 hours. That's going to be it for this stream. As always, I ask you to like, share, subscribe, comment, and watch every second of my videos. If you want a friend or follow me on any social media sites, there's a whole bunch of links down below. Thank you for watching. Have a good evening.